Chapter 978. The 4 seasons of Itagami Island are like summer, the weather is usually sunny. Today, the sky above Itagami Island is covered in dark clouds. It's a rare sight. The sky is dark and gloomy, it looks like the calm before a storm. If it weren't for the lack of lightning, people would have thought that Itagami Island would be drowned by the storm today. It should be around 9 o'clock in the morning. It was still daytime, but the dark clouds in the sky had blocked out all the sunlight. Not a single ray of sunlight managed to escape from the dark clouds. The entire Itagami Island was shrouded in darkness. It was as if night had fallen. Logically speaking, in this kind of weather, every household in Itagami Island should have their lights turned on. However, the weather has been like this for 3 to 4 hours already. Not a single household on the island had their lights turned on. Itagami Island was shrouded in darkness. Of course, it's not that the residents of Itagami Island are out of sorts. They don't want to turn on the lights, it's because the original owners of the houses are no longer there. One has to admit that Itagami Island's higher-ups are very efficient. They originally planned to evacuate the residents of the island in a week, but in the end, they only used 3 days to evacuate all the normal citizens and demons. That's 4 days of free time, plus the 3 days they agreed to use to solve the problem. Wu Yen and the others have a week to solve the prison barrier issue. To be more precise, it's not Suki's issue. 1 week for Wu Yen. It's more than enough. In the sky, the dark clouds continue to rumble. It looks very depressing. Even if there's a thunderbolt or a downpour, it wouldn't be strange. That was nothing strange. The wind was raging on the island, making sharp whistling sounds. The atmosphere of a storm was spreading across the entire artificial island. The tallest building on Itagami Island is the Cornerstone Gate. Standing at the top of the Cornerstone Gate, one can see the entire island in its entirety. Wu Yen, Kodori, Yukaina, Koju and the others are standing at the edge of the gate. If you look closely, you'll notice that Vatler is there as well. Nagisa didn't want to leave, but she didn't want to come with them either. With her phobia of demons, who knows how she would react when she sees Vatler? Plus, the prison barrier is filled with demons. Nagisa isn't a suitable candidate to participate in this operation. To prevent Nagisa from worrying too much, Wu Yen used a hypnotic magic on her. He also put on the mobile church that Nagisa requested to replenish her mana for. With Canon taking care of her, Nagisa should be fine even if the outside world is turned upside down. Koju looked down at the dark Itagami city. He sucked in a breath of cold air. He glanced at Vatler and he whispered to Wu Yen, "Is it really okay to let this guy participate?" From Koju's expression, Wu Yen could see the reluctance in his eyes. Vatler doesn't know how to hold back when he fights. If something goes wrong, Itagami Island. Koju's worries weren't unfounded. Vatler might seem weak because Wu Yen easily defeated him, but he's a vampire who is invincible under the true ancestor level. How can he be so easy to deal with? To put it bluntly, Vatler could sink Itagami Island at any time if he wanted to. Wu Yen said that if he doesn't summon his familiar, it'll be hard for him to beat Vatler. The first time he fought Vatler, Wu Yen had to summon his familiar to defeat him. The second time, he caught Vatler off guard and caught him off guard. The third time, he had to borrow the power of the Enchantress Ashenfrost to defeat him. Excluding the abilities of the familiar, the Enchantress Ashenfrost is on the same level as Wu Yan's familiar. Only a primogenitor can control a familiar. Vatler is a Tier 9 fighter. Wu Yen was able to defeat Vatler in the first 3 fights due to their lack of familiarity with each other. If there's a 4th fight, Wu Yen is confident he can defeat Vatler. But it's not going to be as easy as the first 3 fights. Koju, it's rare for me to participate in something so interesting, can you not take it from me? Vatler closed his eyes and smiled elegantly. Otherwise, even if you're the one I love the most, there's still a chance you'll make me angry. Who's your favorite? Koju shuddered, goosebumps popping up all over his body. Sensei. Yokaina came to Wu Yan's side and said worriedly. Sensei's worries are reasonable. Duke Iridiaro's power is too much of a burden for Itagami Island. I'm worried that. Don't worry. Before Yokaina could finish, Wu Yan's nonchalant voice came from the crowd. It's not like I've been doing nothing for the past 3 days. I've already set up a barrier around Itagami Island. It's a barrier of the highest level that took me 3 whole days to complete. With a calm expression, Wu Yan confidently smiled. With the protection of the barrier ritual, unless 3 or more primogenitors unleash their strongest vassal beasts at the same time to attack the island won't sink. Of course, I can't guarantee that the buildings will remain intact as well. Wu Yan glanced at everyone before looking down at Itagami Island. So, go ahead and cause a ruckus. Koju and Yokaina heaved a sigh of relief. Especially Koju. His familiars were extremely dangerous. He had to be careful when he unleashed them. He was worried that he might lose Itagami Island if something went wrong. Wu Yan's words put Koju's mind at ease. He's telling him that he's willing to give it his all to save Natsuki. Even Vatler joined in the laughter. That's great, there's so much fun to be had on this island, we can't just let it sink like that. Vatler looked at Wu Yan as he brushed his golden bangs aside. It's about time to start, right? I'm getting a little impatient. Wu Yan glanced at Vatler and he didn't answer. He stepped forward and he arrived at the edge of the cornerstone gate. What should I do then? Vatler licked his lips as he stared at Wu Yan. He had an evil grin on his face. The prison barrier is a secret facility located on Itagami Island. Not even the higher-ups of the island know its exact location. That's why the residents call it an urban legend, because no one knows where it is and no one has seen it with their own eyes. Natsuki is the only one who knows where the prison barrier is. The prison barrier was an imaginary world that Natsuki created by making herself fall into a deep sleep. The person who was imprisoned would not be able to destroy it. The only way to destroy it would be to invade from the outside. Before that, finding the location of the prison barrier formation is an important problem that must be solved. Wu Yan scanned Itagami Island as if he's trying to find the prison barrier with his naked eyes. He didn't turn around and he opened his mouth. The prison barrier exists in an artificial world created by Itagami Island's dragon vein energy. I don't know the exact location of the prison barrier, but I'm sure it's somewhere on Itagami Island. His wine-red pupils turned slightly and a golden luster filled his eyes. A monstrous amount of magic power surged out of him, stronger than the wind around him. Since it knows that it's on Itagami Island, and it exists in a distorted alternate world, then if we destroy the entire island, it will have no choice but to reveal itself. Chapter 979. Shatter the entire dimension of Itagami Island? Koju and Yokaina were shocked by Wu Yan's words. Even Vatler's expression changed. He narrowed his eyes and his expression turned serious. Shattering dimension is difficult for normal people. However, for those with great power like Koju and Vatler, as well as attack mages who specialize in space magic, such as Natsuki, it's not difficult. However, shattering the entire dimension of Itagami Island? Forget Koju and Vatler, even the other 3 peak true ancestors might not be able to do it. Yet, Wu Yan boasted that he could shatter the entire dimension of Itagami Island. Standing behind Wu Yan, they looked at the back of Wu Yan, who stood tall in the midst of the raging winds. They didn't say anything, they couldn't say anything. Without giving them a chance to question him, the terrifying magical energy that was surging crazily from his back had already shocked them to the spot. Boom! With a muffled sound, the surrounding gales were replaced by a flow of mana, bringing with it an explosive pressure that swept in all directions and soared into the sky. A whirlpool-like hole was blasted open in the dark sky by the violent flow of mana. Such powerful demonic energy had already surpassed the level of a true ancestor. Koju, Vatler, and Yukina's pupils shrank, their hearts filled with shock. After such a long time, how could Wu Yen, who can cultivate his magic power by himself, not improve at all? When Shi attacked with his full strength, a true ancestor, a vampire who was invincible below the true ancestor level, and a sword wizard from the Lion King organization who had a super powerful weapon that could kill true ancestors became the first people to face him. In their minds, they were filled with shock. Only Kotori. She calmly looked at the scene in front of her. Her ponytails danced wildly in the mana surge. Her lips curled up. She mustered all her mana. Wu Yen closed his eyes and exhaled. He exhaled softly. One of his hands was raised high above his head. Then, his hand was dyed black at a speed visible to the naked eye. The red lines extended upwards and covered his entire arm. It was as if a ghostly hand had reached out from the depths of hell. That's... Koju and Yukina were shocked. Are you going to summon your familiar? Vatler's eyes widened. He recalled the first time he saw Wu Yan's familiar. His eyes were filled with excitement. I can finally see a familiar of that level again. Under the watchful eyes of everyone present, a bloody mist rose from the ghostly arm. The magical energy around his body instantly entwined around it. Soon after, a ball of plasma formed from black electric current emerged from the bloody mist that was entwined with magical energy. I didn't think the first time I summoned you would be under these circumstances. Wu Yan's tone carried a hint of helplessness as he felt the mana flowing out of his body like a broken dam, replenishing the black plasma ball behind him and slowly expanding its mana. Vassal beasts are synonymous with destruction. They don't represent power, they represent extreme destructive power. If a vassal beast doesn't hit its target, it's fine. If a vassal beast hits its target, even if the target is a tier higher than the vassal beasts are even more terrifying. Wu Yan's vassal beasts are even stronger than that. That's why Wu Yan normally doesn't want to summon his familiars. He wants to use them as his trump card. His familiars are his trump card. But now, in order to find a prison barrier, he had no choice but to use his trump card. But I do need your power. His golden eyes turned resolute as he closed his eyes and called out to her. So I summon you, descend. Black Dragon's lightning trap. As soon as his voice fell, the black plasma ball suspended in the air suddenly swelled and exploded. Kaboom! Amidst the deafening roar, a burst of black lightning descended from the sky and flashed in the surroundings. Amidst the undulation, a black dragon bathed in black lightning appeared. The dragon's body was black with a deep luster. It looked like an ancient dinosaur. It stood on 2 feet and its shoulders were adorned with steel shoulder pads. They looked like wings made of steel and they shone with a cold luster. There were armored wings on its back that looked like a fan or a net. It had 3 black claws that looked like a baseball glove. On its back was a spiked tail that looked like a giant cone. It vibrated slowly and made a buzzing sound. A pair of blood-red eyes, the only thing that was different from its body, suddenly opened. The black dragon's lightning trap gently floated up. At the same time, a terrifying aura of destruction shook out from its body, accompanied by extremely terrifying black lightning. At the same time, everyone present saw that in the flickering black thunderbolts, the space was splitting apart bit by bit. That's... Yukina had goosebumps all over her body. She looked at the black dragon lightning trap, and a sense of danger surged in her heart. Yukina was horrified. Is there such a terrifying familiar in this world? That familiar. Vatler stared at the black dragon lightning trap. It's as terrifying as that white guy last time. Are all the 5th primogenitors familiars like this? Space. Koju bit his lip and drank his blood to suppress the blood in his body. The reason for this is because the familiars in his body felt a terrifying presence and wanted to break out of his body to destroy the threat. After expending a lot of effort, Gu Qing temporarily suppressed the vassal beast in his body. However, His gaze was fixed on the flickering black lightning in front of him. Because he saw, the space within the black lightning was shattering bit by bit. That's right, the Black Dragon Lightning Trap's ability is to destroy space. The black lightning doesn't attack an individual, it attacks space itself. With the support of Wu Yan's endless demonic energy, the Black Dragon Lightning Trap soared into the sky and floated under the black sky like the king of the world. Beep beep beep, black lightning jumped around the dragon's body and spread out. Wherever it passed, space was shattered. In an instant, the entire Itagami Island was filled with black lightning. The space around Itagami Island's Garden of Zhou either cracked like a spider web or shattered like glass, leaving only pitch-black holes. The cracks and holes spread out at an unimaginable speed. In an instant, the entire Itagami Island was filled with cracks and holes in space. How terrifying! If anyone touches these cracks and hollows, they'll die without a doubt unless they're strong enough. Fortunately, most of the normal citizens and demons on Itagami Island have left. Only the strong are left. Otherwise, this scene would have brought about an unimaginable disaster. Black lightning flashed crazily under the black sky, destroying the space around Itagami Island. It looked like the end of the world. Still, Wu Yan achieved his goal. Wu Yan observed the space around Itagami Island. At the northern edge of Itagami Island, on the ocean, an island made of rocks slowly appeared. A castle-like building made of rocks stood at the top of the island. That's the prison barrier. It finally appeared. His golden eyes lit up. Wu Yan smiled and cut off the demonic energy in his body. The black lightning and black dragon lightning trap slowly disappeared. The cracked space also returned to normal in the blink of an eye. Other than the island that was flashing with an ominous aura, everything that happened just now was just like a dream. His wine-red eyes turned to Kodori and the others behind him as he said, "Don't worry. The prison barrier has appeared. Let's go." Koju and Yukaina looked at each other and nodded stiffly. It was clear that they were still immersed in the terrifying scene that had just taken place in an instant. On the other hand, Vatler looked at Wu Yan with a meaningful look. This fifth true ancestor, who came out of nowhere, might be the most terrifying existence in the world. Who knows? Chapter 980. Under the dark cloudy sky, a dense ominous aura was like flowing lava, carrying a temperature that could even distort space. It slowly reverberated from the top to the bottom, accompanied by a shocking sense of oppression, as if it was a poisonous miasma that caused the atmosphere to shake. The source of the ominous aura and miasma was located at the northern edge of Itagami Island. It was a never-before-seen ancient island with a castle-like shrine at its peak. The terrain was steep, and the top of the island was an ancient island that had never been seen before. Currently, the island was like a reflection on the surface of a lake. It was swaying along with the space around it. The small mountain where the Templar's castle was located was connected to Itagami Island by a floating bridge. However, the floating bridge was also swaying. It looked illusory and unstable. It gave people the feeling that they would fall into the water if they were to stand on it. At this moment, the prison barrier is like a mirage. It exists and doesn't exist at the same time. It hasn't fully materialized in this world. After all, the black lightning of the shattered space had only affected it, causing it to reveal its original form under the power of the shattered space. It did not extend its power to this place, nor could it extend its power to this place. Even if the prison barrier was located in an otherworld was still a world and a space. If the black lightning that could crush space struck this place, then the entire prison barrier would be destroyed along with the otherworld that contained it. At that time, Natsuyu, who was intimately connected to the prison barrier, would be in the prison barrier. Will also disappear without a trace. Therefore, the black lightning only affected the space on this side and forced the prison barrier out. As a result, the prison barrier was now moving back and forth between the real world and the otherworld's space realm, revealing itself. If this situation continued, sooner or later, the prison barrier would return to the otherworld. Of course, before that, they have to ask who is in charge. Wu Yen and Co., who are standing at the end of the pontoon bridge, agreed. Vatler looked at the swaying ancient island. He pursed his lips and looked at Wu Yen. It seems that in order to make the prison barrier appear, I have to use a powerful attack to destroy the outer space barrier. Why don't you let me do it? He said. Vatler also released his familiar. It's a glowing blue sea serpent. Although it wasn't Vatler's best familiar beast fusion, he was still a pure-blooded vampire of the old generation who had devoured 2 elders. With the power of his familiar beast, he was able to destroy the outer barrier of the prison barrier and force it to reveal itself. It's just a matter of time. But, if you dare, I will break your limbs and throw you into the sea to feed the fishes. Wu Yan's icy cold voice echoed in everyone's ears when he heard Vatler's kind gesture. The prison barrier was a magic spell created by Natsuki. If the prison barrier was hit by an external force, then Natsuki would also be hit by the force of the attack. With the might of Vatler's familiars, Natsuki wouldn't have been able to kill her, but she wouldn't have had an easy time taking on Vatler's attack. Vatler shrugged in a regretful manner when he heard Wu Yan's cold voice. The sea serpent behind him slowly disappeared. Although fighting with you is what I hope to do, fighting with the criminals in the prison barrier seems to be more interesting, Vatler you. Koju looked at Vatler with disgust. He looked at Vatler as if he was looking at a troublemaker, but Vatler only responded with an ambiguous smile. Koju's heart clenched and he took 2 steps back. Wu Yen glanced at Vatler and turned to Yukaina. I'm counting on you, Yukaina. Yes. Yukaina nodded seriously, and the Frost Wolf appeared in her hand and spread out. The Frost Wolf, with the anti-magic attribute, was the most suitable weapon to cut open the outer layer of the prison barrier. Ding! With the silver spear in hand, Yukaina smashed the end of the spear against the illusory floating bridge. A circle of ripples spread out from the spear in all directions. Everything that was affected by the ripples turned solid in an instant. Yukaina then stabbed the prison barrier with her spear. The illusory and unstable ancient island trembled for a moment before stabilizing and reappearing in this world. The seal of the prison barrier was completely undone, and they returned to this ordinary space. Thus, the crowd saw what happened. In front of them, in the Templar castle at the top of the ancient island in the real world, an entrance without a door was facing them. It was right in front of them, and they could even faintly see the interior of the Templar castle. It was like an empty passage. It could be seen that the interior of the prison barrier was completely hollow. There was only an empty space inside, just like a crack in space. Looking at the gap, Wu Yen could roughly guess the origin of the Witch of the Gap. What is this? A witch who lives in a crack, so she's called the Witch of the Void? Wu Yen shook his head and smiled sarcastically. What a direct and appropriate title. Wu Yen led everyone into the Templar castle. Just like what they saw in the beginning, the interior of the Templar castle is empty. There's only a vast space. The surrounding walls were made of dark stones with a tinge of purple, causing the atmosphere to lean towards gloomy and cold. In this spacious space there was nothing but stones. There was only a chair placed in the very center of the room. Yes, there's a chair in the empty hall of the Templar castle. It's a luxurious armchair that looks like a throne. Natsuki was sitting on a chair. She was beautiful and young, and her face was like a doll's. She was wearing a black lace dress. If one ignored her petite figure, she would look like a smart and capable queen. What surprised everyone is that, unlike the rumors, Natsuki isn't asleep. Instead, she's staring at them with her starry eyes. When she saw Wu Yen, they could see a hint of anger and helplessness in her beautiful eyes. Natsuki. Wu Yen was surprised to see Natsuki staring at him. Why aren't you asleep? Natsuki raised her head expressionlessly, but her tone was filled with annoyance. If I knew you'd do something so serious, even if I was asleep, I would have been woken up by your anger. Wu Yen awkwardly scratched his face. Koju hurriedly stood up. The vampire teacher is trying to save you, Natsuki-chan. Before Gu Cheng could finish speaking, Na Yu shot him a sharp look. Don't add the word chan behind the teacher's name. Natsuki got up from her chair, and she walked in front of Wu Yen. She looked at him and then at Vatler, who was grinning beside him. She snorted. Why is this snake charmer here? I'm sorry. I didn't come uninvited this time, Vatler said with a smile. I received a formal invitation to come. Even if you don't tell me, I know why you're here. Natsuki's tone softened when she met Wu Yan's gaze. She stared at Wu Yan. It's not too late to back out. Looking at Natsuki's beautiful face and eyes, Wu Yan grinned. He shook his head and he didn't say anything. However, Natsuki couldn't help but feel helpless when she saw the determination in his eyes. Think carefully, this mess isn't that easy to clean up. Wu Yan blinked and asked in confusion. Aren't you going to stop me? Is that so? Is it going to work? Natsuki didn't answer, but Wu Yan laughed. Of course not. With a wave of his hand, the gate of Babylon's crimson space rippled in his palm. Not long after, a strangely shaped dagger with a blade as sharp as lightning appeared in his hand. Koju and Yukaina watched in shock as Wu Yan raised the dagger and stabbed at Natsuki's chest. Chapter 981. No one could have predicted that things would unfold like this in the end. The strangely beautiful dagger seemed to slow down under Na Yu's gaze. She could only watch as the sharp dagger stabbed towards her chest. Hesitation appeared in Na Yu's eyes. It was obvious that she was considering whether or not she should dodge. But in the end, Natsuki gave up inside. She didn't resist and watched as the cold dagger stabbed into her chest. However, to her surprise, the pain that she had imagined did not come. This caused her face to be filled with surprise. Natsuki-chan. Koju, who didn't know what Wu Yan was doing, turned pale with fright. He glared at Wu Yan and rushed forward. You bastard! Wait, senpai. Yukaina came back to her senses and stopped Koju. Looking at Minamiya-sensei, that dagger doesn't look like it will cause any harm. Hearing Yukina's words, Koju looked at Natsuki and saw the surprise on her face. He immediately let out a sigh of relief and started complaining. What the hell is going on? That despicable vampire senpai, why didn't he explain himself before doing something so misleading? Unlike the noisy Koju and Yukaina, Kotori and Vatler chose to watch from the sidelines. They were curious about what Wu Yan was planning to do to Natsuki. Kotori and Yukaina were also curious. After all, they didn't have to do anything before this. Wu Yan didn't tell her his plan to save Natsuki and Kotori didn't ask. She only needed to help him from the sidelines. On the other side, Natsuki wasn't as relaxed as Kotori and the others. More accurately, she was burning with anxiety. Natsuki could feel that the magical power she obtained from forming a contract with a demon and the power of the demon incarnation's guardian is disappearing at an uncontrollable speed after she was stabbed by the strange dagger. In other words, her contract with a demon. It's disappearing. This was not a situation that Natsuki could easily deal with. Natsuki thought that Wu Yan would ignore her protests and destroy the prison barrier. He would then imprison her so that she wouldn't return to her dark life. She also thought of freeing herself. Wu Yan would ruthlessly kill her to redeem her. Natsuki didn't expect Wu Yan to have a way to break her contract with a demon. In the past, Natsuki had never even thought of doing something like this, let alone having a practical example. He had never heard of a witch's contract that could be broken. Of course, that's not important now. What's important is that once her contract is broken, she'll lose all her powers and become a normal person. What on earth was that dagger? Na Yu's heart shook again and again. Finally, she could not help but speak up. Yen Yu. Don't speak. Wu Yan narrowed his eyes. His expression was unexpectedly serious. I've said it before. I've thought about everything you've thought about. Just wait quietly. Seeing Wu Yan's serious expression, Natsuki opened her mouth and hesitated. She didn't intend to speak again. As for Wu Yan, he closed his eyes. Breaking the contract between Natsuki and the demon will turn her into a normal person. Wu Yan knew this. Although this is a way to free Natsuki, Wu Yan knew that with Natsuki's pride, she wouldn't allow herself to become a weak and ordinary girl. Therefore, Wu Yan had to break the contract between Natsuki and the demon at the same time. At the same time, he had to pay the price of breaking the contract and preserve her powers. Wu Yan's idea is very whimsical. Natsuki is making a deal with the demon. The demon isn't a good person. How can he pay a one-sided price? Therefore, Wu Yan decided to use another method. Using the ability of the Talisman of 10,000 Spells, he did not break the contract between Natsuki and the demon but instead broke the connection between Natsuki and the demon in the contract and snatched the contract that should have belonged to the demon. As long as the contract remains intact, Natsuki's powers will be preserved. Without the connection between her and the demon, Natsuki will be fine even if she doesn't pay the price. Instead of breaking the contract, he will break the connection between the two parties. Such a humanized setting did not exist in the Talisman of 10,000 Laws ability. However, with the endless martial arts' perfect control over his own body and the knight has never died by his bare hands' absolute control over his treasured artifact, this setting became possible. However, the contract under Wu Yan's control must be supported by Wu Yan's own mana. It's similar to Kanon's situation. Because of this, Wu Yan didn't care at all. He lacked everything, but magic power was not one of them. In an instant, under the effects of Talisman Breaker and Knight never died by bare hands, the connection of the contract was successfully broken. Without the support of the demon, the contract fell apart. Wu Yan channeled his magic power into Natsuki through the Talisman of Infinite Arms. His magic power flowed into Natsuki's body through the Talisman of Infinite Arms. He used his magic power to simulate the connection between the two of them and the contract itself. The contract that was about to collapse was connected again and continued to function perfectly. What's different is that this time, the one connected to Natsuki through the contract was no longer the demon, but Wu Yan who was close by. Natsuki was stunned when she felt the faint binding disappear. Once a demoness signed a contract with a demon and obtained the power of a demon, then the price she had to pay for the contract would be controlled by the demon. It would forcefully bind the user and make the user comply with the contents of the contract and carry out the price she had to pay. But now, in Natsuki's senses, the demon that was constantly restraining her seemed to have disappeared. It was kind and no longer used the power of the contract to control her. Am I free just like that? While Natsuki was confused, Wu Yan exhaled heavily and pulled the dagger out of Natsuki's chest. Vaguely, a faint connection fluctuated between his and Natsuki's minds. Sensing the faint connection, Wu Yan and Natsuki looked at each other. One smiled, the other smiled bitterly. How did you do it? Wu Yan was about to answer Natsuki's question when... Bang! The Templar castle trembled violently, causing everyone's expression to change at the same time. The dark and majestic Templar castle trembled, as if it was hit by an earthquake. The walls groaned as if they couldn't bear the weight and started cracking inch by inch. The prison barrier was created by Natsuki's dream. Now that Natsuki had woken up, the prison barrier was naturally in an extremely unstable state. Adding on the fact that the contract in Natsuki's body had been broken for a brief moment, Natsuki had lost her power for a brief moment. The prison barrier could no longer be maintained. The Templar castle collapsed. The stone walls collapsed like an avalanche. The ground shook violently. Broken pieces of stone smashed into the ground, creating a thick cloud of dust that enveloped the entire area. Not long after, the entire Templar castle collapsed into ruins. Not far from the ruins, ripples of space appeared. Wu Yen, Natsuki, Kotori, Yukaina, and Koju appeared out of thin air. At the same time, a golden mist appeared and condensed into Vatler's figure. The prison barrier has collapsed. Koju and Yukaina stared blankly at the ruins of the Templar castle. They still haven't recovered from the shock. Just as everyone's attention was focused on the ruins before them, another spatial ripple suddenly appeared. Not good. Natsuki, who was the first to react, seemed to have thought of something. Her expression changed drastically as she turned her head around. Almost at the same time, a woman with long hair that reached her feet, wearing a gorgeous kimono, appeared behind Natsuki. She held a thick book in one hand, while her other hand shot out and caught Natsuki off guard. Natsuki's hand landed on Natsuki's back, and a sinister smile appeared on her face. A sense of danger rose in Natsuki's heart. Chapter 982. Natsuki-chan, Minamiya-sensei. When everyone came back to their senses and realized what had happened and reacted, the thick book in the woman's hand also emitted a dazzling flash. Bzzz. Bang. The dazzling light instantly enveloped everyone present, including the woman in luxurious clothes. It spread to the surroundings at an extremely fast speed and filled the entire top of the ancient island. It was like a lighthouse in the dark night, flashing brilliance at the same time as if announcing the return of something. Amidst the flash of light, a series of clamorous voices echoed. Those were the screams of people who were unable to adapt to the sudden situation. But not long after, the clamor was drowned out by a muffled sound. Shortly after, a slender figure emerged from the dazzling flash of light and stood on top of the ruins of the Templar castle. It's the woman with long hair holding the book in her hand. Looking at the light in front of her rapidly dimming, revealing the figures of the group of people inside, the long-haired woman in luxurious clothes glanced at the thick book in her hand. Her pretty face slightly changed, and then her expression sank. Did we fail? The brilliance engulfing Wu Yan's group disappeared. Everyone was shocked. Koju and Yukaina were still in shock. Kotori also put down her book to shield herself. Vatler covered his eyes with his hands to block the flash of light and smiled as if it had nothing to do with him. Natsuki looked like she's still in shock. Wu Yan is standing beside her. The talisman breaker is already in his hand. Natsuki didn't notice when he stabbed the talisman back into her shoulder. Seeing this scene, the well-dressed woman standing at the top of the ruins of the Templar castle immediately understood the reason. What caused my calculation to fail? Natsuki-chan, Minamiya-sensei? Koju and Yukaina ran to Natsuki's side. Are you alright? Natsuki shook her head. She glanced at Wu Yan, who put away the talisman. Then, she shifted her gaze to the top of the Templar castle. Her pretty face turned solemn. It's you? Yi-chan. It's been a long time since we last met, Natsuki. A joyful smile appeared on the face of the woman named Yi. Koju, Yukaina and the others saw it. However, it was exceptionally chilling. I didn't expect that the prison barrier would be released under such circumstances. This is truly out of my expectations. Natsuki took a deep breath. Her face tensed up. She took a few steps forward. But from the looks of it, you don't seem to be surprised at all. That's right, you've been planning to escape from the prison barrier for quite some time now, yes. Yi admitted it without any hesitation. I did have a plan, but now. Looking around at the Templar castle that had turned into ruins, Yi chuckled. There's no need for that now. Yu clicked her tongue and looked away from Yi. She turned to look at the book in her hand. That's a grimoire? Did you notice? The smile on Ye's face suddenly faded, and a trace of anger could be seen in her eyes. It was anger at something that had not been completed. Natsuki, who witnessed this scene, carefully observed the grimoire and seemed to have understood something. Number 014 foot, is it a grimoire that has a built-in accumulation of time? I see. You wanted to use it to steal my time, right? Steal time? Hearing Natsuki's words, everyone looked at Aya. Vatler glanced at the grimoire named Number 014 and chuckled. That grimoire has the ability to steal other people's accumulated time. It can turn their knowledge, experience, and abilities into its own. Vatler looked at Wu Yen gloatingly. But it seems like her wishful thinking has been ruined because of you. At this point, everyone roughly understood what had happened. To put it simply, the moment the prison barrier was released, this woman called a Yi plan to use the grimoire to steal Natsuki's time. This way, not only would she be able to obtain all of Natsuki's memories and abilities, she would also be able to completely weaken Natsuki, who originally possessed great strength. It was as Vatler said, it was a wishful thinking. Unfortunately, when Natsuki's time was about to be taken away, Wu Yen used the power of the dagger to nullify the effect of the grimoire on Natsuki. No one knew what the ability of the Talisman of 10,000 Laws Breaker was, but they guessed that this was probably what had happened. That was the truth. Although the Talisman of 10,000 Laws was truly powerful because it could break all kinds of contracts, it also had the effect of breaking magic. After all, it was a treasured artifact that was specially used against magic. Yachan closed her eyes. When she opened them again, there weren't many ripples. I'm just taking back what was originally taken away from me. Natsuki's eyes trembled. She knew what Yachan was talking about. A noble from the warlord's domain? Aya didn't pay any more attention to Natsuki and turned to Vatler. Are you going to side with Natsuki? Yes. For the time being, that is indeed the case. Vatler revealed a cruel smile. He turned his head and looked behind a Yi. After all, it seems to be very interesting to fight with you prisoners of the prison barrier formation. They followed Vatler's line of sight, and only then did they notice. Behind Yachan, who was at the top of the Templar castle, there were many figures standing there. There were at least 100 of them. We're out. We're out. Ha ha. We're finally out of that damned prison barrier. We're free. We're finally free. We're free. We're free. Laughter filled with endless ecstasy reverberated crazily like thunder in a short moment, accompanied by waves of terrifying aura emitted from the owner of the voice. The prisoners of the prison barrier. Ever since the prison barrier was built, they've accumulated a large number of powerful prisoners over the past 10 years. At this moment, all of them had escaped from the prison barrier formation. Looking at the densely packed figures, every one of them emitting an evil aura, everyone's expression changed. Na Yu's expression was grave. This is the worst situation. Unlike Natsuki, Vatler was trembling all over. That was the trembling of extreme excitement. Great. This is great. Vatler couldn't suppress the extreme joy he felt from the bottom of his heart when he imagined the scene of his massacre. An earth-shattering wave of magic energy surged from his body. Sensing the terrifying magic fluctuation, the prisoners of the prison barrier also reacted from their ecstasy. That's Duke Arudiaro from the warlord's domain. Some of the prisoners who recognized Vatler cried out in surprise. At the same time, they also saw Natsuki standing below them. Their surprise turned into fear. The Witch of the Void. Run. The prisoners here were all captured by Nayu, so they naturally knew how terrifying Nayu was. Without any hesitation, the 100 or so criminals scattered in all directions. It didn't take long for all of them to reach Itagami Island. Natsuki's expression changed when she saw this. She wanted to do something, but Wu Yen stopped her. Don't worry. Wu Yen looked at the top of the ruins without even looking at the escaping prisoners. None of you will be able to escape from Itagami Island. Natsuki stared at Wu Yen for a while before nodding. Ai looked down at Na Yu from above and said, Don't worry, I'm not going to let you go. I hope you can take good care of the things I left with you. I will come back for them sooner or later. After saying that, Aye's body flashed with the light of space manipulation magic, and he disappeared from where he was standing. Only Wu Yen and the others are left. Chapter 983. Hugh. Hugh, the dark clouds in the sky gave off an oppressive feeling, as if telling people that a bloody storm was coming. The wind blew past the ruins of the Templar castle on the ancient island, blowing up clouds of dust. Looking at the prison barrier, that had completely turned into history, Natsuki couldn't describe her current feelings. Was it the joy of being free from the demon shackles? Yes. Was it the sadness of the place that she had protected for 10 years? That too. All sorts of emotions intertwined together, making Natsuki's mood extremely complicated. She could only suppress the complicated emotions in her heart and stand in front of Wu Yan, meeting his gaze. Natsuki stared at Wu Yan's face. Her doll-like face wavered slightly. She had a lot of things she wanted to say, but they all turned into a single sentence that she wanted to say to put up a brave front. This time, you have to be responsible for cleaning up the mess. Hearing this, Wu Yan shook his head with a smile. He squatted down so that his gaze was at the same level as Natsuki's and started teasing her. I told you not to worry, whether it's for the mess or for you, I will be responsible for it. Be serious. Natsuki raised her brows slightly, as if she was scolding Wu Yan. But if one looked closely, one could see that in her bright eyes, there was a trace of panic that couldn't be concealed. If she didn't tell herself not to show weakness, Natsuki wouldn't have dared to look at Wu Yan's eyes that seemed like they could eat people. In order to change the topic, Natsuki could only pretend to be serious. What do you plan to do with the escaped criminals? Just like how the criminals knew how terrifying Natsuki was after being captured by her, Natsuki, who had captured the criminals once, knew how dangerous they were. With Natsuki's strength, naturally, she didn't need to be afraid of the criminals that she had captured before. Although some of the criminals were captured before Natsuki's main body fell asleep, the current Natsuki was no longer the Natsuki of the past. Since her main body was sleeping in the prison barrier, Natsuki could only project all her power into a physical avatar. They were active on Itagami Island. Because the main body was almost inactive, Nayu could also invest all of her power into her clone without worry, allowing her to possess strength that was not inferior to her main body. But in the end, a clone was still a clone. Even if the main body didn't use its power and poured all its power into the doppelganger, there would still be a portion of power that the doppelganger couldn't use. That was the guardian, that belonged exclusively to the demoness. Guardians were as important to witches as familiars were to vampires. Only by using the guardian could Natsuki fully utilize her strength as a Tier 9 demon. Her current strength was no weaker than Vatler's. There was a price to pay for forming a contract with a demon, but the greater the price, the greater the power one would obtain. Natsuki's price was to sleep in her own dream for the rest of her life, guarding the prison barrier until she died. This price was not small, and the power she obtained was naturally greater than that of an ordinary witch. Plus, she had a decade of experience dealing with demons. Even Vatler did not dare to say that he could definitely win against Nayu. This could be seen from the battle intent in his eyes when he looked at Nayu. If Natsuki hadn't received Vatler's acknowledgement, she wouldn't have shown it. Wu Yan stopped teasing Natsuki when they started talking about serious matters. He stood up and looked towards the direction of Itagami Island. I've set up a high-level barrier ritual on Itagami Island. On one hand, it will protect the island so that it won't be burdened by too much energy. On the other hand, it will prevent the criminals from escaping the island. Even though I can only maintain such a powerful formation for 5 days, at the very least, we don't have to worry about anything happening to Itagami Island for the time being. Those criminals won't be able to escape either. Natsuki, Yukaina, and Koju breathed a sigh of relief. What they feared the most was the criminals escaping from Itagami Island. If that happened, it would be like releasing a tiger back into the mountains. In other words, within 5 days, we have to capture all the criminals again, right? Natsuki pondered for a moment and frowned. Will that be fine? There are some unusual ones among the criminals. For example, Ai. She's a witch like me. She specializes in spatial magic. Will your barrier be able to stop her? Stop her. It won't be a problem to restrain her. Wu Yen waved his hand calmly. We just have to think about how to capture all of them within 5 days. 5 days, huh? Koju sighed and clenched his fist. There are so many criminals, can we really capture them all in 5 days? But, Yakaina tightened her grip on her frost wolf. We have no choice but to do it. We can't just leave them be, don't worry. Vatler, who was standing alone at the side, shrugged and gave a seemingly kind smile. I will help you. Vatler. Koju's gaze sharpened as he looked at Vatler. Let's make this clear, you can't kill them or else, oh? Vatler raised an eyebrow and smiled. Since it's your request, I won't reject it. Let's leave them alive. You bastard, Vatler turned to face Wu Yen, his eyes gleaming with eagerness. Well then, let's end the show here. It's time for me to start my hunting trip. Wu Yen glanced at Vatler. We only have 5 days. I'll give you 4 days to have fun. After 4 days, send all the people you've caught to me. After that, even if you want to play, I won't give you another chance. 4 days, huh? Vatler laughed menacingly. That's enough. With that, Vatler's entire body turned into a golden mist and disappeared on the spot. Hey, are you sure? Koju was still worried about Vatler. Let's use as much power as we can. Kotori answered Koju. We don't have enough time. Yakaina nodded and looked at everyone. What should we do now? All of Itagami Island's residents have been evacuated. The only ones left are the strong attackers and demons. Kotori glanced at the island before turning to Wu Yen. We don't have to worry about the island with the barrier protecting it. What we should do now is to capture the criminals and deal with them. Everyone nodded. The reason why these criminals were imprisoned in the prison barrier was because their crimes were too serious. On the other hand, they were too powerful compared to others. Ordinary prisons couldn't hold them. Now that the prison barrier had disappeared, if they wanted to imprison these vicious criminals, they had to find something that could replace the prison barrier. Is there a way to do that? Kotori asked Wu Yen. A prison that can replace the prison barrier. Everyone looked at Wu Yen. Looking at everyone's eyes, Wu Yan's lips curved into a grin. Everyone understood Wu Yan's answer when they saw Wu Yan's expression. Only Natsuki still had a trace of doubt on her face. The prison barrier was a magic barrier controlled by Nayu herself. It was Nayu's dreamscape. Because all the criminals existed in Nayu's dreamscape, even a Yi, who had the ability to control space, could not escape. Natsuki doesn't believe there is a substitute that can rival the prison barrier. But, since Wu Yen said so and this is the only way left, Natsuki can only stay silent. Suddenly, Natsuki's expression changed and she attracted everyone's attention. Before anyone could ask, an ominous black aura suddenly rose from Nayu's body and enveloped her. Wu Yen, Kotori, Yakaina, and Koju were shocked. Chapter 984. Itagami Island. Under the dark sky, the streets of Itagami Island looked deserted due to the evacuation of the residents. Strong winds blew through the streets, litter and trash were blown all over the place. Combined with the gloomy weather and the undamaged buildings, Itagami Island looked like an abandoned ghost town. Just walking on the streets would make one's heart palpitate. Fortunately, with the evacuation of the residents, the only ones walking on the streets are the powerful attack mages and demons. For them, this kind of environment isn't enough to make their hearts palpitate. Of course, other than the attack mages and demons who aren't under the control of Itagami Island, other organizations that belong to Itagami Island didn't evacuate either. For example, the management of the artificial island and the security force of Itagami Island. After all, Itagami Island still belongs to them. Even if the residents and demons evacuate, they can't leave. Otherwise, if their territory turns into an empty city, who's going to take care of it? Lion King Organization had Itagami Island's management announce that the residents and demons are evacuating because of the mutation of the dragon vein. They need to conduct a thorough investigation. This might fool some people, but it won't fool the people in charge of Itagami Island. They don't know why the management of Itagami Island agreed to Lion King Organization's suggestion even though they knew there was no such thing. However, that was no longer something they could control. What they needed to do was to play their part and do their jobs well. Therefore, they didn't know what they were going to face next on the dead silent Itagami Island, inside the management of the artificial island. There are many machines here that are among the best in the world. They are arranged neatly, coupled with the many screens. It looks like a computer room in an internet cafe. However, compared to a normal internet cafe, this place is much more advanced. No doubt, it's much more advanced. In front of all the machines, there's also a large screen. On the big screen, there was a list of projects. These projects were the work that the staff here had to complete every day. Suddenly, buzz, 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 buzz. On the screen, one by one, the warning signs began to flash wildly, shocking all the staff here. Captain, abnormal magic power detected in the western region. And it's very powerful. Captain, abnormal magic power was also detected in the eastern region. There are at least 10 of them. Captain, abnormal mana clusters have appeared in the southern region. Captain, the northern region is also. In the studio, the people who were working in an orderly manner just now were in a mess in an instant. Alarms were flashing wildly in the whole studio. Looking at the numerous alarms on the big screen and the reports from his subordinates, the captain's face changed dramatically. What's going on? Why were there suddenly so many abnormal magic alarms? And they are all so powerful. Captain, the edge of Itagami Island is damaged. Captain, I'm also. Captain! Captain! The anxious shouts of his subordinates finally woke up the captain from his shock. Knowing that it was not the time to be in a daze, the captain immediately issued an order. Inform the Special Administrative Region garrison to meet the attack. Yes, sir. At the same time, at the edge of Itagami Island, bang 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 bang, powerful shockwaves accompanied by sonic booms charged towards the ocean outside Itagami Island. It looked like the shockwaves were going to pierce through the ocean like a hot knife through butter. However, just as the shockwaves were about to reach the edge of Itagami Island, a glowing glass-like barrier appeared out of thin air. The shockwaves landed on the barrier, causing a series of muffled explosions and ripples on the barrier's surface. However, the barrier was not damaged in the slightest. In a burst of fluorescent light, it once again disappeared into the void. Damn it! What the hell is that? Why is it so hard? Who the hell set up this barrier? Did Itagami Island have a barrier like this in the past? After a series of angry shouts, the source of the shockwaves became clear. It's the convicts who escaped from the prison barrier. It's obvious that they were planning to leave Itagami Island, but the barrier in front of them is blocking their way. Even with a dozen of them working together, they couldn't break through the barrier. It's obvious how high level this barrier is. Clap, 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 clap. Just as the criminals were about to execute another round of concentrated fire, a rhythmic clap slowly sounded, accompanied by a series of footsteps and a voice. As expected of the convicts from the prison barrier, they're much stronger than the average person. The dozen or so prison barrier criminals were shocked, because out of so many of them, almost none of them had noticed that someone was approaching. Abruptly, they all turned their heads to look behind them. What they saw was an exceptionally dazzling figure in a white suit in the dark. It's Vatler. Duke Iridiaro. The noble from Warlord's territory. It's him. Seeing that it was Vatler, the faces of all the criminals changed. Vatler had a bright smile on his face as he looked at the convict. Then, he looked at the void at the edge of Itagami Island and clicked his tongue in wonder. That was the barrier ritual left on the island, right? What an amazing technique. Even I didn't notice its existence before it was attacked. I heard that it requires 3 primogenitors to work together to break it. I really want to see how hard it is. 3 primogenitors working together to break it? The convicts were stunned. If it really requires 3 primogenitors to work together to break it, what's the point of attacking here? They didn't believe that all of them together could match one true ancestor, let alone 3. Oh? I think I said something I shouldn't have. Vattler shook his head as if he had just realized something. Then, he grinned evilly. But it doesn't matter. All of you will have to leave here. Following Vattler's words, a shocking amount of mana surged, illuminating Vattler's smirking face. Don't worry, someone told me not to kill you. I will leave you with one last breath. As soon as he finished speaking, a gigantic snake with blades coiled around its body opened its ferocious mouth, as if it could swallow the sky and charge towards the criminals. Ah. No. No. Ah. Stop. I surrender. I surrender. Ah. Help. Ah. Ha 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 ha. Vattler's maniacal laughter echoed in the night like an echo. On the other side, what's going on? Unlike the convicts who are trying to escape Itagami Island, the ones who wanted to wreak havoc on Itagami Island didn't see a single person after walking around the city. They were both furious and surprised. Is Itagami Island abandoned? Impossible. This is the Demon Special District. It's blessed by the Dragon Vein, who would abandon this place. Then, why isn't there anyone here? Who knows, damn it? After being locked up in the prison barrier for so many years, I still want to find a few people to vent my anger on. Humph, does that mean there's no one at the Cornerstone Gate? Yeah, that's right. At the very least, the Special Administrative Region Police Force must be guarding there. Then, if we go there, ha ha ha, I'm sure we'll have some fun there. Let's go. Let's go. The convicts seem to have formed an alliance. They're heading towards the Cornerstone Gate to cause trouble for the guards. However, before they could take a step forward, they noticed. A figure is standing in front of them. My apologies. Seeing that the criminals were stunned by his appearance, Gu Ching unzipped his jacket and his eyes turned red. From now on, this is my war. Amidst the angry roar, golden lightning exploded and condensed into the shape of a giant lion, violently rushing over. Come at me, Lion's Gold. Roar! Chapter 985. Pew 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 pew, ah! Kill them. Stop them. Bang bang bang. Kaboom! On Itagami Island, gunshots, roars, screams, and shouts filled the street. The entire island was filled with smoke and fire. That's the sound of the prison barrier's criminals clashing with Itagami Island's security guard. Even though Koju and Vattler managed to capture most of the criminals from the prison barrier, there are still a lot of criminals left. With Itagami Island's special status as a special demon territory, there will never be a lack of people with evil intentions. Wu Yan has only been in this world for a month, and he already encountered the Black Death Emperor faction, who wanted to start a war with Nalacuvula. There was also Kinsei Kinase, who wanted to create fake angels, and other sorcerer puppets who wanted to use them to make money. Even if these people hadn't reached the point where they needed to be locked up in the prison barrier, one of them needed to be personally judged by the Battle King's domain, and the other one still had some value. Otherwise, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to lock them up in the prison barrier after calculating their crimes. Think about it, there are 2 such cases in a month. That's 10 years after the prison barrier was completed. Even if there are only 10 of them in a year, there will be 100 of them in 10 years. Don't think that 100 people was a small number. These 100 people weren't ordinary humans or demons. Instead, they were all powerful figures who had once caused terrifying magical crimes. Even if they were captured, there was no way to deal with them, which was why they were locked up in the prison barrier. How terrifying would it be if there were more than 100 of them? One can only imagine, If it weren't for the fact that the criminals were vampires of the fourth and first primogenitors, they wouldn't have been able to do it. If they want to take down these criminals on Itagami Island, at the very least, they have to do it on the island. Not many people have the ability to do so. The same goes for the security guards. They are just a bunch of normal people who are equipped to fight demons. None of them know how to fight demons. Otherwise, they wouldn't be members of the Special Administrative Region's garrison. They would be official attack magic officers, and it would be up to them to deal with such a group of criminals. That would be terrible. Luckily, the advanced equipment they have is enough to hold them off. Koju and Vatler have been running around Itagami Island as firefighters. Of course, Vatler only wants to hunt. Saving the guards is just a bonus. Koju, on the other hand, is going to save anyone he sees. He's just short of donning a Superman costume. Other than that, the attack mages and demons on Itagami Island also started fighting with the criminals. In an instant, the entire island turned into a battlefield. Aya stood at the top of the cornerstone gate, looking down at the chaotic Itagami city. Her fiery eyes didn't waver in the slightest. Yi was a witch who was proficient in space manipulation magic. She was the same type of existence as Natsuki. Even if she wasn't the strongest among all the prison barrier criminals, there was no one who could do anything to her. If Yi were to join the battle, then forget the guards, Itagami Island's attack mages and demons, even Koju, a half-baked primogenitor, might not be able to defeat her. However, not only did she not join the battle, she didn't even think about leaving Itagami Island. After all, what she really wanted was the item that was in Natsuki's possession. Also, it's not like Aya didn't try to break through the barrier on Itagami Island. Unfortunately, even with her space manipulation sorceress skills, she can't escape from the barrier. Aya knows that Natsuki doesn't have the ability to set up a barrier that can trap all the criminals. The person who set up this barrier is someone else. Someone who is on the same side as Natsuki. This made Aya wary. She didn't dare to go up to them directly. She could only wait here for an opportunity. Of course, Aya isn't the only one waiting for an opportunity. If one looked carefully, they would find that there were 4 people behind Yi. They didn't know when they had gathered. One of them is a burly man in armor, one is an old man in a llama costume, one is a delinquent with a pirate hairstyle, and one is a woman in a revealing dress that gives off the scent of a prostitute. All 4 of them were criminals from the prison barrier domain. Moreover, they were all evil powerhouses whose strength far surpassed those ordinary criminals and could be compared to Yi. As if he didn't notice their arrival until now, Yi turned his head and glanced at them. "So it's only the 4 of you?" "I guess so." The one who answered Aya was the frivolous woman. She put one hand on her waist and looked up at the dark sky. She laughed mockingly. The others are still immersed in the joy of escaping from the prison barrier. They haven't fully understood that they've just escaped from a small cage to a larger prison. Indeed, just like the frivolous woman said, Itagami Island is nothing more than a giant prison with a barrier around it. They couldn't really be considered to have escaped. TSK. Bastard. To think I was so happy about escaping from that damned place. The delinquent spat on the ground, his face filled with displeasure. "Don't let me find out who made that tortoise shell or I'll tear them in half." Then, the witch secretary of the library, Shindu Yi, the burly man in armor, spoke. "What's the matter? Why did you call us here?" "It better be something useful." The delinquent laughed cruelly. "Otherwise, I'm in a bad mood right now." Aya didn't even look at the delinquent's threat. She spoke calmly. "I called you here because I want to work with you." "Work with you?" The 4 were stunned. "That's right." Aya nodded and looked down at the war-torn Itagami Island. "You don't have a way to escape from this island, right?" "You mean?" The old man in llama costume spoke with a hoarse voice. "You want us to work together to break that barrier?" Aya shook her head and said emotionlessly, "If that barrier can trap all of us, Even if the 5 of us work together, we won't be able to break it. I want to work with you because of Natsuki." The Witch of the Void. The 4 criminals fell silent. To them who were once prisoners of the prison barrier, Natsuki Nangong was a name that made their hearts palpitate. This time, the people who released us from the prison barrier were from Natsuki's side. They seemed to want to save Natsuki, who was cursed by the devil. Ye's tone was a little complicated when he said this. "Don't you think it strange? They clearly know that once the prison barrier is released, all of us criminals will escape, but the people around Natsuki still did it." "I think I know what you're trying to say." The frivolous woman smiled seductively, her eyes were red. "The barrier around Itagami Island was set up by the Witch of the Void, right?" "I see." The delinquent sneered. "So you're saying that you're planning to gather us together to find that B***starred witch and get even with the person who set up the bounded domain and break it? That's a good idea." The burly man and the old man in llama costume nodded. When they were freed from the prison barrier, they didn't expect to be trapped on Itagami Island again. That's why when they saw Natsuki and Vatler together, they didn't cause any trouble and just left. After all, the prison barrier had been broken, and they were now free. Going up against the Witch of the Void in her true form was undoubtedly a very foolish thing to do. They didn't expect that they didn't regain their freedom. Perhaps they wouldn't dare to go against Natsuki on their own. But the 5 of them weren't ordinary people. If they worked together, they would have some confidence in defeating her. But isn't the battle maniac from Warlord's domain on their side?" the frivolous woman asked Aya. "Plus, the Witch of the Void, don't worry." Aya chuckled and took out a grimoire from his arms. Number 014 was written on the cover. Natsuki is no longer a threat. Chapter 986. Itagami Island, Southern Residential Area. In the living room, Wu Yen and Kotori sat side by side. They looked at the petite and pretty girl sitting across from them. They had weird looks on their faces, but their eyes were full of smiles. Kanon and Nagisa are also sitting side by side. They are also looking at the petite and pretty girl. Unlike Wu Yen and Kotori, they are blushing. They are looking at the little girl with sparkling eyes. If you listen carefully, you will notice that Nagisa is muttering the words "so cute." Indeed, the little girl is very cute. Or more accurately, she is super cute. She was wearing a brand new children's dress that seemed to have just been bought. Judging from her appearance, she was not even 10 years old. However, her black hair was extremely long, reaching below her waist. There were even tornado-like curls on her hair. Coupled with her beautiful face that was as delicate as a doll's, even though her appearance was still very young, her charm was already beginning to show. If this little girl walks on the streets, she will be treated as a painstakingly crafted doll. She will be swarmed by a group of uncles and aunties. Unfortunately, that incomparably adorable little face was currently filled with deep dissatisfaction. "Can you stop before going too far?" The little girl's tender and childish voice carried a trace of dissatisfaction as it was vented out from her mouth. "Haven't you gotten tired of looking at me?" Wu Yen, Kotori, Kanon, and Nagisa shook their heads without hesitation. Nagisa even cupped her face. She cried out like she found the little girl cute. "How can we get tired of looking at her? She is too cute. I will never get tired of looking at her." Kanon nodded repeatedly. Even her saint-like face was slightly flushed. "She is really cute, Namiya-sensei." "That's right. This little girl who looks less than 10 years old is Natsuki Minamiya herself. Natsuki already has the appearance of a young girl. Now, she is several years younger. Other than her appearance, there is no change. Her height had decreased by quite a bit, and her voice had become much softer. Even the inexplicable majesty that had been hovering around her had completely transformed into cuteness. It could be said that if one ignored her tone and appearance, the current Natsuki was nowhere near her former self. It was also because of this. That was why Wu Yen and Kotori were acting like this. When they thought about how the dignified Natsuki had turned into a little girl who only knew how to act cute, they had the urge to laugh. They couldn't stop themselves from laughing. Of course, Natsuki herself was very dissatisfied. Wasn't it just that he looked a little younger? It's not that different from before, right? Natsuki originally had the appearance of a young girl, but now she had become even smaller. Natsuki felt that there shouldn't be much of a difference. What he didn't know was that the biggest change wasn't in his appearance, but in his temperament. The words spoken by that delicate voice had completely destroyed her image. That was why Kanon and Nagisa were behaving like this. Fortunately, Yukaina had been asked by Wu Yen. She went out to prepare the necessities for the new prison barrier ritual. Otherwise, she wouldn't be able to remain calm. Seeing Natsuki's increasingly dissatisfied expression, Wu Yen coughed and suppressed the laughter in his heart. He pretended to be serious. Then, according to what you said, in the end, Sendu Mao Yi still took away your time? Natsuki snorted and then sighed. After all, it was a curse that originated from the grimoire. Even if you reacted in time to stop it, you were still one step too late and only managed to preserve my memories. In other words, rubbing his chin, Wu Yen said thoughtfully, has all of your power been taken away? Not all of them. Natsuki nodded and glanced at Kanon. It's all thanks to your student. I have more or less stored some magic power and retained some strength. At this point, Natsuki looked at Kanon with a hint of surprise in her eyes. As a witch, Natsuki is well aware of the power of the grimoire. For example, if a witch who could only match a vampire of the younger generation could obtain the help of a grimoire, her strength would instantly soar to the level of an old generation vampire. Number 014, who was able to control the accumulated time, was even more powerful. However, just now, Natsuki, who lost all of her power and only retained her memories, managed to recover a little of her power with Kanon's help. It's just a little, but in Natsuki's eyes, this normal middle school girl who only has extraordinary psychic abilities has become something else. Kanon smiled shyly under Natsuki's astonished gaze. She said regretfully, but Minamiya-sensei hasn't recovered to her original state. As one of the holy angels, Kanon didn't have any combat power, but she had unimaginable healing and purification abilities. The power that took away Natsuki's time was a curse. With Kanon's purifying ability, she should have been able to dispel it. However, Natsuki's power had long been taken away and no longer existed in her body. Therefore, even Kanon couldn't take back the power that belonged to Natsuki from number 014 from a distance. Therefore, Kanon could only expel the curse from Natsuki's body so that Natsuki, who had lost her power, could use her own ability to replenish her mana. Don't worry. Natsuki couldn't bear to see her student's dejected expression and smiled nonchalantly. Although I lost my power, I still have my memories. Ai-chan's main goal is to obtain my memories. With her personality, she will come looking for me sooner or later. When that time comes, I'll just take back my power. Wu Yen recalled that there is such a thing and he asked her about it in a puzzled manner. By the way, Shindu Mu Ai-chan said she left something with you. What is it? Wu Yan's question caused Natsuki to lower her head. She lowered her head and spoke in a low voice. What a Yi wants isn't my memories, but a grimoire called the Dark Oath Book. Dark Oath Scroll? Wu Yen and Kotori looked at each other. They didn't say anything and looked at Natsuki. Natsuki glanced at them and her expression froze. It's a very dangerous grimoire. It has the power to change the world. You said. Change the world. Wu Yen and Kotori, even Kanon and Nagisa looked at each other. A grimoire that can change the world? Is there such a grimoire? Don't doubt it. Natsuki sighed again. It's because it has such power that I burned it 10 years ago. Wu Yen and Kotori understood what's going on. Because the original copy of the Dark Oath Scroll was burned, Shindu Mu Ai-chan wanted to steal your memories to find the records of the Dark Oath Scroll? I'm afraid so. Natsuki closed her eyes. Ai-chan is known as the Witch of the Secretary. If she's the one, she should be able to recreate the Dark Oath scroll from my memories. From Na-Yu's tone, everyone could clearly hear the sadness in her voice. This caused everyone to lower their heads and fall silent. It's hard to believe, but Shiendu Mu Ai-chan, the person who schemed against Natsuki, was Natsuki's good friend 10 years ago. Going against her good friend's path of hostility, let's not talk about Immortal City Mu A's situation for now, but Natsuki's heart is definitely not feeling good. Natsuki's delicate face didn't show any expression, but Wu Yen could sense the complex emotions in her heart. He slapped his own cheek. Alright, no matter what Shiendu Mu Ai-chan's goal is, since she came looking for us, we'll just have to wait patiently. Rolling his eyes, Wu Yen suddenly moved his head closer to Natsuki. He blinked his eyes and he grinned. Before that, do you want to take a shower with me? Chapter 987. Huh! Natsuki was stunned. Wash, wash, wash. Nagisa's face stiffened and slowly turned red. Even Kanon looked at Wu Yen in disbelief. She couldn't believe that Wu Yen said those words. Only Kotori smiled bitterly. It's a pity that Wu Yen did say those words himself. Yeah. Wu Yen crossed his arms in front of his chest, and he continued in a matter-of-fact manner. Didn't you sleep in the prison barrier for 10 years? That means you haven't bathed in 10 years, right? Natsuki almost fainted from anger when she heard Wu Yen. She frowned and her eyes were filled with killing intent. Don't slander me so casually. I'm not as dirty as you think. But it's the truth. Wu Yen pursed his lips and looked at Kanon and Nagisa. Kanon, Nagisa, do you think so as well? It wasn't just a day or two, it was 10 years. Kanon and Nagisa looked at each other in dismay. In reality, Natsuki has been sleeping for 10 years. Indeed, he had been sleeping in the prison barrier formation for 10 years and had not taken a bath for 10 years. With this thought in mind, Kanon and Nagisa looked at Na-Yu strangely. It was as if they were looking at something pitiful, causing the word, well, to appear on Na-Yu's forehead. But, like Wu Yen said, this is a fact. Even if the prison barrier is his own world, he wouldn't be able to get dirty if he stayed there for too long. However, Natsuki was still a young girl. Which girl would want to be seen as someone who hasn't bathed in 10 years? Natsuki took a few deep breaths to suppress her anger and looked at Wu Yen with hostility. Even if that's the case, I can bathe alone. Why do I have to bathe with you? Wu Yen smiled brightly. His eyes were crooked from smiling. It doesn't matter, he said. You're just a little girl less than 10 years old. It's not a big deal to bathe with me, is it? Who told you it's not a big deal? Natsuki raised her voice to express her anger. You don't see me as a little girl anymore. I even need someone to bathe for me, right? Fine. Wu Yen shrugged helplessly. Natsuki snorted. Even Kotori, Kanon, and Nagisa laughed bitterly. Just when everyone thought Wu Yen was joking and didn't intend to bathe with Natsuki, Wu Yen suddenly reached out and picked her up. What are you doing? Natsuki cried out. Hee hee. Wu Yen giggled when he met Natsuki's panicked eyes. He teased her. Natsuki-chan, come bathe with me. Don't call me Natsuki-chan. Natsuki retorted and struggled. Let go of me. Natsuki's struggle is as weak as an ant compared to him. Wu Yen ignored her and he carried the struggling Natsuki into the bathroom. Kanon and Nagisa looked at Natsuki being carried into the bathroom. They didn't know how to react for a while. Did he start a new strategy? Kotori glanced at the bathroom with a smirk. You're quite capable. Kanon and Nagisa, who had just recovered from their shock, almost fell into a state of confusion again. I'll talk. Kotori-chan. Nagisa closed her eyes in exasperation as she yelled at Kotori. Don't you care about Sensei? He's. I know, he's bathing with another girl. Kotori sucked on her lollipop and shook her leg expressionlessly. It's not the first time anyway. Huh! You two don't mind it too much. Kotori sighed when she saw the two girls' stunned expressions. Otherwise, you'll be in for a lot of trouble. With that, Kotori stood up and returned to her room, leaving the two cute and beautiful girls staring at each other, completely at a loss of what to do. For a moment, the entire hall fell silent. What are you doing? Stop! Be a good girl and don't move. How are you going to take off your clothes? Who said you could take off my clothes? How are you going to bathe if you don't take off your clothes? I said I can bathe myself. You're already in here and you're still saying that? Fine, if that's the case. Ah. Stop. Hee hee, you can take off this too. No. Inside the bathroom, Wu Yan's triumphant laughter and Natsuki's enraged cries rang out. Kanon and Nagisa heard their flirtatious conversation, and they blushed. Nagisa blushed and her eyes were filled with anger. While Kanon blushed, she secretly glanced in the direction of the bathroom. Her eyes were filled with envy. She also wanted to bathe with Wu Yan. Splash! With a clear splash, Natsuki was tossed into the water. Luckily, Wu Yan held her up with his hand, otherwise, Natsuki would have had to drink a few mouthfuls of the bathwater. You bastard! Natsuki hugged her body and glared hatefully at the smiling Wu Yan. If her power hadn't been taken away by number 014, she would have used her discipline lock to hang Wu Yan in the air. Wu Yan smiled at Natsuki's murderous glare. His smile was still there, but it was no longer playful. Instead, he looked serious. Natsuki cried out in surprise and Wu Yan pulled her into his arms. He splashed water on her and he placed his hand on Natsuki's head. He started stroking her beautiful long hair. You're still as soft as ever, whether it's your real body or your avatar. Natsuki, who was about to elbow Wu Yan, stiffened and lost her strength. She leaned into Wu Yan's arms. Of course. Natsuki lowered her head and stroked her hair. That avatar I created based on my own body. It's almost the same as my real body. Is that so? Wu Yan chuckled and rubbed his chin against Natsuki's head. But I still feel like there's a big difference. He tightened his grip on Natsuki's waist, pulling her smooth body closer to his chest. Wu Yan whispered into Natsuki's ear. I feel like the real body is much warmer than the avatar. Idiot! Na Yu turned her head away in an unnatural manner. Slight ripples appeared in her eyes, causing her heart to beat faster. She could only let out a scolding that was neither light nor heavy to hide her current feelings. You turn the entire Itagami Island upside down for a little bit of warmth, what an idiot. Wu Yan shook his head with a chuckle. He continued to help Natsuki wash her body. If I'm an idiot for doing this, then let me be an idiot for the rest of my life. Natsuki fell silent. She lowered her head and didn't say anything for a long time. After a long time, she finally said something. Idiot. Perhaps Wu Yan sensed something different from Natsuki's words. A gentle smile appeared on his face. Natsuki snuggled into Wu Yan's embrace and she closed her eyes. Her heart is strangely calm. Ding. Avatar Natsuki has fused with user's body. Mental fusion. Existence meets the conditions to activate Beast Mark. Beast Mark has been activated. Avatar Natsuki has been transformed into a vassal beast. The system beep that came from the depths of his mind caused his smile to freeze. Before he could react, another beep came. Beep. Avatar Natsuki is in an abnormal state. Vassal beast transformation failed. Avatar Natsuki has returned to normal. Transformation will begin again. What? Wu Yan cried out in shock. Natsuki looked at him in confusion. What's wrong? Nothing. And nothing. Wu Yan brushed Natsuki off. He ignored Natsuki's confused gaze and continued what he was doing. His wine-red eyes were filled with thoughts. Chapter 988. Bang! As soon as he returned to the apartment and saw the sofa, Gu Qing threw himself onto it, ignoring the fact that his face was smashed onto the sofa. His eyes were filled with exhaustion. I'm so tired. I'm going to fall apart. I'm going to shatter. I'm going to die. The face buried under the sofa kept moaning. Koju, who was originally very carefree, had completely turned into a dispirited person. This made Nagisa very unhappy. Kojo-kun, you're just running an errand for sensei. You're not going to fight the prison barrier. If you continue like this, no girl will like you. Koju forced himself up and forced a smile. He wanted to cry, but no tears came out. What do you mean I'm not going to fight the criminals in the prison barrier? I'm going to fight the criminals in the prison barrier. Of course, Gu Qing couldn't say this out loud. Otherwise, wouldn't his excuse of running errands be exposed? Unlike Koju, Yakaina had a serious expression on her face. She walked to Wu Yen with a straight face. Sensei, here's what you want. I've prepared everything. So fast? Wu Yen looked at Yakaina in surprise. Yakaina chuckled. There's a Lion King organization office on Itagami Island. I went to ask them for help. After all, it's hard to find anything on Itagami Island. Ever since the prison barrier was liberated, Itagami Island has turned into a battlefield. Even though it's protected by the barrier, it's still not safe. Due to the barrier, Itagami Island is protected by the barrier. However, running around in such a place filled with battles, not to mention finding things, even their safety was a problem. Plus, most of the residents on Itagami Island are gone. She has to do it herself if she wants to find something. If it wasn't for the Lion King organization office on the island, even with Yukina's shrewdness, it would be hard to gather all the necessities for the new prison. Yukina's job is simple. It's not as easy as Koju's. Wu Yen gave Yakaina a thumbs up. He turned to Koju on the sofa. Then, what about those prison barrier criminals who were arrested again? They've lost their ability to fight for the time being. I followed your instructions and threw them to the cornerstone gate. They should be guarded by the special forces, right? Koju scratched his head. He didn't try to hide it from Nagisa. Now, in Nagisa's eyes, he was just an errand boy who was going to report to the management community on the artificial island to help the teachers catch the criminals in the prison barrier. Therefore, he didn't need to avoid Nagisa to talk about this in person. The special forces. Wu Yen rubbed his chin. I hope they can keep an eye on the criminals. Don't underestimate the Special Administrative Region Garrison Force. Natsuki, who had worked with them for 10 years as the instructor of the Special Administrative Region Guard Force, immediately defended them. They're just a bunch of criminals who have lost their ability to fight. With the ability of the Special Administrative Region Guard Force, it wouldn't be difficult to guard them for a few days. Is that so? Wu Yen scratched his face. Why do I feel like they won't be of much help? That's because our opponents are the prison barrier criminals. Natsuki shook her head. With their abilities, it's good enough that they didn't get hurt. Are they really that good? Nagisa shrunk her neck. To her, the special forces protecting the peace of Itagami Island are really good. She's just a normal middle school student after all. They're much better than you think. Kotori knocked Nagisa's head with her hands on her hips. That's why you shouldn't run around, at least not for the time being. I know. Nagisa puffed up her cheeks and lowered her shoulders. Why is it that everyone can help, but I can't do anything? You. Kotori laughed bitterly. She knocked Nagisa's head again. Don't keep looking down. Otherwise, everyone will be dispirited too. Nagisa quickly pulled herself together. The depression in her heart left as quickly as it came. Alright, I'll go make some food for everyone. I'll help too. Kanon pulled Nagisa's sleeve, eliciting a chuckle from Nagisa. Wu Yen watched as the two stood up. Just as he was about to say something, a strange yet powerful aura appeared in Wu Yan's senses. His smile froze. This is... Stimulated by the aura, Wu Yen shuddered and he looked at the source of the aura. It's right above him. What's wrong? Kanon and Nagisa were about to enter the kitchen when they saw Wu Yen looking up at the ceiling. They also looked up in confusion. What's wrong with the ceiling? This aura. Natsuki, Kotori, Yukaina, and Koju seemed to have noticed something as well. They looked up at the ceiling in bewilderment. It was also at this moment that everyone sensed that the strange aura coming from above their heads seemed to have reached a critical point. It was as if something had detonated it, and it fiercely smashed down. Although he didn't know what the main body of this aura was, judging from its strength, once it smashed down, this apartment would be turned into ruins. Not good. Natsuki, Yukaina, and Koju gasped in shock. Kotori hugged Kanon and Nagisa. Wu Yen didn't hesitate. He channeled his mana and he disappeared from the living room. When he reappeared, he was already on top of the apartment's rooftop. Wu Yen looked up at the dark sky above him. The next moment, he saw the source of the aura. It's a whirlwind that looks like a whirlpool. Hum! Accompanied by a sharp tremor, a huge vortex of air formed by strong winds rolled up under the dark sky. A huge whirlwind of more than 100 meters in size swept down from above, accompanied by a whistling sound. It was like the tail of a tornado falling from the sky, falling in the direction of the apartment. It's not going to show any mercy. Natsuki, Nagisa, Yukaina, and Koju will be heavily injured if they get sucked into the whirlwind. They might even die. Realizing this, Wu Yan's eyes flashed with anger. There are no other residents in the apartment. Those who are left are the most important people to him. How dare you! Crimson ripples appeared in the air. Before the ripples spread, Wu Yen grabbed the gate of Babylon and pulled the Nyaton Shana out of the gate of Babylon. Raising his head to look at the sky, he coldly stared at the huge whirlwind that was descending from the sky. A ring of red lotus flames suddenly ignited on the blade of Nyen Shana. Under the control of its master, the Nien Temple Shana, whose eyes flashed with a cold light and was burning with red lotus flames, swung it up into the air. Whoosh! As the dazzling firelight drew a precise arc, a sea of fire with an area of more than 100 meters, even larger than the whirlwind, suddenly rose with the dazzling firelight as the source. As if erupting from the depths of hell, it carried the atmosphere so hot that it was evaporating and violently met the whirlwind. Boom! An incomparably hot sea of fire suddenly swarmed forward, roasting the space and wrapping the whirlwind vortex that came into contact with it inside. In an instant, the whirlwind that came into contact with the sea of fire was engulfed by the domineering flames. The whirlwind trembled and evaporated into nothingness. Under the dark sky, above the heavy apartment, the whirlwind dissipated and turned into a puff of smoke together with the sea of fire of red lotus, drifting away into the distance. What? A gasp of disbelief resounded as the whirlwind and the sea of flames dissipated. Wu Yen turned around and looked at the source of the sound, which is the rooftop of the building next to the apartment building. There are 5 figures there. One of them is Immortal Mu Yi. The criminals from the prison barrier. They're here to attack. Chapter 989. What? The person who exclaimed was the prison barrier criminal who looked like a delinquent. You actually made my... A face that was originally filled with arrogance and despotism was replaced by a gloomy expression, rendering that loathsome face ashen. It could be seen that his attack was ineffective. For the delinquent youth, it seemed to be a matter of great shock. That flame. The old man in the llama costume suddenly widened his wrinkled eyes. There was a flicker of fire in his eyes. That's definitely not an ordinary flame. Who is he? The flirtatious woman and the burly man both looked at Wu Yen, who was floating in the air. One of them still looked seductive and the other cold, but from their tone, it's clear that they're serious. Having stayed in the prison barrier together for such a long time, they knew how strong the delinquent youth was. Now, the full-force attack of the delinquent youth was actually blocked just like that, so they couldn't help but become vigilant. Even immortal city's Mu-A-Yi couldn't help but squint his fiery eyes. At the moment the prison barrier was released, immortal capital Mu-A-Yi could have successfully taken away that month's time with the situation at that time. However, because Wu Yen stabbed the talisman into Natsuki's body, number 014's curse wasn't complete. It took away her power, but it didn't take away her memories. For immortal Wood-A-Yi who wants to recreate the Dark Oath book, this is completely useless. And now, because of this man, looks like he was the one who set up the barrier. Immortal Mu-A-Yi lowered his head. His murmur attracted the attention of the other 4 prison barrier criminals. It's him? The criminals all looked at Wu Yen. A murderous aura began to rise from their bodies. It's a murderous aura that only evil people who've gone through countless massacres and whose hands are stained with blood can have. Yen. Teacher. On the other side, the door to the rooftop opened. Kotori, Natsuki, Kanon, Nagisa, Yukaina, and Koju all ran to the scene. They faced the criminals from the prison barrier. Natsuki's face tensed up as she looked at the 5 figures. So it's you guys. You're the Witch of Space. The flirtatious woman was startled by Natsuki's current appearance and didn't recognize her at first glance. Ahahaha. What's wrong? Sorceress of the Void. How did you become like this? The delinquent looked at Natsuki, who has shrunk a few sizes. He was stunned for a moment, then he laughed maniacally. She suits you, bastard. He descended from the sky. He landed beside Natsuki. Wu Yen frowned as he looked at the other 4 figures other than immortal Mu-A-Yi. The criminals with immortal Mu-A-Yi? Looks like they're not ordinary. Natsuki nodded and glanced at the delinquent, who was laughing maniacally. Sutra D? He's a criminal who inherited the ability of a quasi-god descendant, Tenbu. He has the ability to control psychokinesis. He should be the one who attacked just now. His line of sight swept over Sutra Kazan, who was standing at the side of Sutra Kazan. The flirtatious woman beside D. Natsuki spoke. Girlio? Draldi, the bloodline of the 3rd primogenitor, the Chaos Empress. He's a pure-blooded vampire from the old generation. His familiar can control the minds of others. He's a dangerous character. She finished. Natsuki looked at the burly armored man. Brooder? Dambu Gulov is a former mercenary hired by the Western European Church. He is also the last descendant of the Dragon Slayer clan. His strength is all in that body and that sword. When facing him, you must be careful of his sword. Natsuki looked at the old man in llama attire. As for him, he's called Chilika? His name is Chilika. He's a monster with a flame spirit spell implanted in his body. He's a spirit user. A flame spirit user. Kotori, who didn't even look at the prison barrier criminals, didn't even bother to look at them. Hearing Natsuki's words, he finally glanced at Chilika with an interested expression on his face. Oh, I see. Wu Yen pursed his lips and he chuckled. Plus, Sendakumu-I is using the same magic system as you. None of them are easy to deal with? Hey! Hey! Koju clenched his fist. He gritted his teeth when he sensed the ominous aura from the 5 figures. Isn't the situation bad? Kotori, Yukina-chan. Kanon-chan. Nagisa grabbed Yukina's hand and hugged Kanon. It's fine, Nagisa-chan. Yukaina squeezed Nagisa's hand and forced a smile. Wu Yen, Sensei and Minamiya Sensei are both here. It'll be fine. Nagisa looked at Yukaina and sighed in relief, as if she had been convinced. However, she didn't notice the deep worry in Yukina's eyes. Natsuki has lost half of her power and Koju, Kanon, and herself can't reveal their identities in front of Nagisa. Yukaina doesn't know if Wu Yen and Kotori are enough to deal with the 5 prison barrier criminals. Of course, that's because Yukaina doesn't know Wu Yen and Kotori's true strength. Otherwise, she wouldn't think that way. This was because the 5 criminals of the prison barrier were all Type 8 powerhouses, and they were not ordinary Type 8 powerhouses. However, Wu Yen and Coterie are Tier 9. Even if they only send one of them, they can easily take care of them. Furthermore, the two of them were not the only ones facing the 5 criminals from the prison barrier formation. Oh? Seems like something interesting is going on here. With a frivolous voice and a wave of golden mist, Vattler appeared with his hands in his pockets, his face full of excitement. How cunning of you to not invite me to such an interesting event, Vattler. Dimitri? Vattler. Many people present exclaimed at the same time, causing the smile on Vattler's face to grow even wider. He took a step forward and stood in front of Wu Yen and the others. Vattler scanned the 5 people in front of him and his smile widened. Secretary Demonis, descendant of the Deva, the last descendant of the Dragon Slayer clan, the clan of the Chaos Empress, the controller of the Flame Sprites, ha ha, ha 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 ha. Vattler couldn't suppress the joy in his heart. He couldn't help but laugh. Good. That's great. That's what makes it interesting. Hearing Vattler's excited laughter, as if he had found his prey, the other 4, with the exception of Immortal Capital Mua Yi, were a little angry. Despicable bastard. He's just a vampire noble. Veins popped out on Sutla's forehead. Under the control of his anger, a sharp gust of wind swirled around him. With a whistling sound, it turned into a deadly invisible wind blade that sliced towards Vattler. Don't get too cocky, bastard. Heh! Vattler's face was ferocious, and his eyes quickly turned scarlet. At the same time, a sea snake wrapped in blue flames appeared behind him. It opened its mouth, and a super-strong pressure that was far stronger than the previous one blasted forward like an invisible heavy cannonball with a sonic boom. In the next moment, the invisible wind blade and the invisible air pressure cannonball clashed together. Boom! A deafening roar unavoidably reverberated, bringing with it a violent gust of wind. When the two attacks that both manipulated the atmosphere collided, the surrounding airflow was affected and exploded like sound wave. The wind waves that were no less powerful than a Force 10 typhoon swept out in all directions. Ah! Yakaina, Kanon, and Nagisa hurriedly raised their hands to shield themselves, but they were almost blown away by the wind. No, Nagisa, who was smaller and a normal person, was already on the verge of collapsing. Wu Yen appeared beside the 3 girls and caught Nagisa, who was about to fall. He also pulled Kanon, who was feeling uncomfortable from the wind, and protected the 2 girls in his arms. Wu Yen took a deep breath and he looked at Nagisa, who is still in his arms. She's the only one who is still alive right now. Sorry, Nagisa, you should sleep for now. Nagisa only had time to hear this before a strong sense of drowsiness assaulted her mind, lulling her to sleep. Battle. It was on the verge of erupting. Chapter 990. Kanon! Kanon shrieked in surprise. Before she could react, the sleeping Nagisa was shoved into her arms. I'll leave Nagisa in your care. Kanon was stunned. Her eyes were filled with panic. Me? Wu Yen nodded. He smiled warmly at Kanon's panicked expression. He patted her head. Believe in yourself, you can protect Nagisa. I believe in you. Hearing this, Kanon's eyes lit up. Then, they turned into determination as she nodded. Yes. Very good. Wu Yen smiled in satisfaction. His expression hardened. His arm transformed into a pitch-black ghostly hand with red veins. Descend. Angel's holiness. Mana surged into Kanon's body in a manner invisible to the naked eye and unrestrained by space. Kanon's body suddenly emitted a dazzling glow after receiving the powerful mana. In the blink of an eye, 3 pairs of pure white wings unfurled from Kanon's back. Feathers fluttered in the air as a holy halo appeared above her head. With a dense radiance, the pure girl turned into a holy angel. Her radiance illuminated the dark sky. After regaining control of her familiars, Kanon's confidence swelled. She carried Nagisa and flapped her wings, flying far away from the battlefield. A familiar? Kanae's Kanon is a familiar? Natsuki, who had yet to learn of Kanon's true identity, was shocked to see the angelic girl shrouded in light. She turned around and looked at Koju and Yukaina beside her. What the hell is going on? I don't know either. Koju shook his head with a bitter smile. Yukaina looked away from Kanon. According to Sensei, because of him, Yanasi seemed to have transformed from a human into his familiar. As for the reason, he has never told us. Natsuki frowned. Something flashed in her eyes as she thought of something. But soon, his thoughts were replaced by a rumbling sound. Boom! Under Vatler's control, the dark blue sea serpent spat out a violent atmospheric pressure and went straight for the 5 criminals inside the prison barrier. Without any explanation, it bombarded the top floor of the opposite building. The fragile buildings were destroyed by the bombardment. Only a pile of broken stone fragments was left behind. Amidst the cracking sounds, they fell to the ground, stirring up a thick cloud of dust. They actually attacked the 5 of us at the same time. Gigliola, who had moved to another building with his companions, sneered. Dimitri? Vatler, do you want to fight all 5 of us at once? That's not bad. Vatler laughed evilly. Isn't it interesting? Roar! The sea snake-like familiar roared as Vatler laughed maniacally. Then, like a train, it charged towards the 5 prisoners in the prison barrier. That bastard! How arrogant! Shutla's face was livid. Does he really want to kill all 5 of us at once? Seriously? Bruder coldly watched the sea serpent familiar charge at him. He drew his greatsword from his back and took a step forward. Like a mayfly trying to shake a tree, he charged towards Vatler's familiar. Wuji! The simple greatsword slashed across the sea snake familiar's neck, like a flash of a blade, viciously chopping down. If someone who didn't know what was going on saw this, they would laugh themselves to death. Familiars are highly concentrated mana entities with a will. In other words, they are mana itself. The only way to stop a vassal beast from being released was to use a greater amount of mana than the vassal beast itself to cancel it out. Bruder, on the other hand, slashed at the familiar with his greatsword. Such an action was like using a sword to slash at a volcano that was erupting. The final result would definitely be drowning in the magma that erupted from the volcano and not even leaving behind a corpse. However, what happened next caused everyone's jaws to drop. The armored Bruder swung his greatsword at the sea serpent familiar. There was a dazzling flash as a normal yet powerful slash landed on the familiar's neck. Vatler's familiar was sliced in half. It didn't even have time to cry out before it disappeared into thin air. Wah! Koju and Yukina's pupils shrunk to the size of a needle. Vatler was stunned for a moment before he laughed happily. It's as if the one that died wasn't his familiar but a piece of trash. I almost forgot. You're a descendant of the Dragon Slayer clan. Vatler's familiar is a serpent, but it's powerful enough to carry some dragon attributes. Otherwise, Vatler's serpent familiar wouldn't be able to take on the form of a dragon when they fused together. For a dragon slayer like Bruder, even if it was the familiar of a vampire that was invincible below the level of a true ancestor, it was still easier to deal with than a vampire familiar of the younger generation. However, Vatler's joy only grew when he saw this. Not bad. Not bad at all. The joy in his heart brought about a powerful magic that no one could ignore. It was like the most eye-catching color that dyed Vatler's body in a fiery glow. Rising from the glow was a snake-shaped familiar that glowed with a black light. Roar! The serpent familiar roared. Under the influence of a special power, its roar became a tangible sound wave. As it roared, pitch-black cracks appeared in the air and shot towards Bruder like ferocious spears. Bang bang bang! Vatler had gone all out. Apart from fusing with his familiar, he was using his strongest attack. He didn't care about his surroundings at all. He ordered his familiar to attack indiscriminately. The surrounding buildings were engulfed by the invasion of the pitch-black crack. Like decaying wooden houses, they were destroyed in the blink of an eye. Stone fragments flew in all directions mercilessly and spread out, forcing the criminals to once again dodge. However, such behavior had completely ignited the fury in the hearts of some criminals. Don't get too full of yourself, snake charmer. Gigliola's eyes turned into a true red color. Magic power rolled up from her body, and a long whip flashing with red light appeared in her hand. It's a familiar weapon, an ability that only female vampires under the command of the third true ancestor can use. Gigliora summoned his whip-shaped familiar. The soft, boneless whip tore through the air and arrived in front of Vatler's familiar in an instant. It then coiled around the familiar tightly. Roar. The snake-shaped familiar roared again. However, this time, its roar was laced with traces of pain. Under everyone's shocked gazes, the serpent familiar roared in pain and turned around. It abandoned Vatler to attack Wu Yen and the others. This is... Vatler frowned when he sensed his familiar break free from his control. Then, a satisfied smile appeared on his face. So that's how it is. A familiar that can control wills? She can even control other familiar beasts. As expected of a pure-blood princess. Is this the time to smile so casually? Koju shouted hysterically from behind. Seeing Vatler ignore the vassal beasts that were about to attack them, he gritted his teeth and raised his hand. Frost Wolf. Koju was about to summon his familiar when a feminine shout interrupted him. A silver spear with a cold gleam appeared in front of the serpent familiar at an unimaginable speed. It pierced the serpent familiar's head without hesitation. There was no sound, and the serpent familiar and the whip-like familiar were crushed into nothingness by the silver spear. Wah! Gigliora was shocked. Wielding her silver spear, Yukaina stood in front of everyone and faced Giriola. Sensei, let me deal with her. Wu Yen glanced at Yukaina, thought for a moment, then nodded. From a certain point of view, Yukaina, who possessed the Frost Wolf, was Giriola's nemesis. GMO. Koju was stunned. He scratched his head helplessly and glanced at Shutla. Looks like I can't just stand here and watch the show. When Kotori heard this, she nodded in agreement. She turned her red eyes toward Chilika, who was in his llama attire, and a smile appeared on her face. I'll go have some fun then, Flame Spirit's Messenger. Chapter 991. Ha! With a shout, Yukaina charged forward with her silver spear flashing with a cold light. She flashed to the top of another building and arrived in front of Giriola. With a piercing sound, the sharp tip of her spear flashed past. Giriola's expression changed, and his red eyes became serious. Her familiars and Vatler's familiars were destroyed in the blink of an eye when they clashed against the silver spear. She didn't think she would be fine after being stabbed by the spear, even if she was an immortal vampire. Immediately, Giriola stomped on the ground and quickly retreated, dodging Yukaina's Frost Wolf. Yukaina immediately jumped and chased after him. Not long after, the two of them had retreated quite a distance and left the battlefield. What are you doing? That bastard! Shutra roared rudely as he raised his hand. Under the control of his telekinesis, a sharp air current scraped against his arm, producing a sharp sound of friction. Are you guys going to ignore me? Bastards! After cursing arrogantly, Shutla swung his hand at Yukaina. A sharp gust of wind swept out and slashed towards Yukaina's petite back. Come at me, Lion's Gold! On the path of the buzzing storm, a burst of golden lightning suddenly burst forth. Like fireworks, it flashed wildly and condensed into a mighty thunder lion with golden fur fluttering all over its body. It looked like a golden lightning bolt. Roar! The golden thunder lion let out a roar. The lightning was so dense that it seemed like it could tear the sky apart. It clashed with the gust of wind. Clap, 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 clap. The lion's gold fiercely charged forward. Wherever it passed, the violent gale actually collided with the golden lightning under its charge. It didn't even last for a second, and the humming sound of the wind breaking apart exposed Svetla to the charge of the huge thunder lion. Bastard! Just by looking at it, Sutra knew how terrifying the lion's gold was. He was about to say that it was just a true ancestor, but he swallowed his words when he sensed the threat of the lightning lion. He quickly leaped up and dodged the attack. Rumble! In the next instant, the violent lightning lion pounced on the spot where Shutla had been standing. It was only natural that the familiar of the fourth primogenitor would be able to deal with it. There wasn't a single place that could be preserved in perfect condition. All of them had been turned into ashes by the violent lightning. Heh! Shutla smiled cruelly, but a drop of cold sweat rolled down his forehead. You're quite capable, bastard. I'm sorry. Gu Cheng's body flashed with golden lightning as he spoke in an unapologetic tone. If you disturb GMO, I'll be in a lot of trouble. What? Are you saying you want to die alone? Bastard! Regardless of what he was thinking in his heart, Shutla was still extremely arrogant and boastful. If possible, I really want to die once, Gu Cheng said. A scarlet light flashed in his eyes. Violent golden lightning bolts swelled up from his body and once again condensed into a golden lightning lion. Unfortunately, this cursed body really can't die. Go! Lion's gold! Roar! The lightning lion with golden lightning surging all over its body once again let loose a thunderous roar, and it was like a bolt of lightning descending from the heavens as it flashed toward Shutla amid a series of hair-raising electronic sounds. Bastard! Sutla cursed as he activated all of his psychokinesis. An extremely soft, poochie sound suddenly rang out. At the same time, 4 ghostly wrists appeared like phantoms. They were phantoms formed by pure psychokinesis. Oi koi! Seeing this, Gu Cheng loudly shouted as if he was unable to bear it. Don't tell me those arms can also release those storms? Bingo! Bastard! Shutla laughed sinisterly. He raised all 6 arms above his head, and a more violent storm than before condensed on each of his wrists. If you understand, then die obediently. You bastard! As soon as he finished his words, he swung all 6 of his wrists down. The deadly storm tore apart all the buildings in front of him and sliced them into pieces. Then, with a sharp buzzing sound, the storm crashed into the lion's gold. Boom! The next moment, a ball of fire exploded in the sky like a large firework, blooming under the dark clouds. Ha ha! Seeing that his attack had blocked the lion's gold, Shutla regained the confidence he lost due to the lion's gold's power. He laughed arrogantly as if he wanted to regain his dignity. So what if you're a primogenitor? A mere familiar of a primogenitor is nothing but a worm in front of my shattering mist axe, bastard. Is that so? While Shutla was laughing hysterically, a lazy voice rang out from behind him, accompanied by a series of electric sounds and dazzling golden lightning. The wild smile on Shutra's face froze, and a chill ran down his spine. Gu Cheng raised his fist and roared as he looked at Sulla, who had his back facing him. His fist was flashing with lightning as he roared. Have a taste of a primogenitor's fist. Tang Wulin stomped his foot on the ground, and his fist, which was wrapped in golden lightning, smashed heavily into Sutra's back. It's over. Shutla. Bam! A muffled thump rang out as a burst of sharp pain erupted from his back. Bursts of violent golden lightning surged through his body at a rate of over 1,000 times per second, crashing relentlessly into his seemingly frail body. His body bent at an unnatural angle, and Shutla was sent flying. He slammed into the wall of a concrete building and sank into it. He didn't crawl out. Phew! Gu Cheng slowly retracted his fist and looked at the sunken wall. He sighed in exhaustion. Senpai! It was at this moment that Yukaina, who was holding a frost wolf in one hand and a person in the other, leaped to Koju's side. The person in her hand was the fainted Giliola. Are you done with your side? Yukaina. Yukaina smiled and nodded as she tossed Giriola to the ground. The most terrifying thing about Giriora's familiars was that they could control the minds of others. However, such familiars were completely useless against the frost wolves that could nullify magic. On the other hand, Jiriora's other familiar, the venomous hornets, relied on their numbers to gain victory. They were also useless against the agile swordsman. Without the help of familiars, Vatler is no match for Yukaina. It's only a matter of time before Jiriola loses. Bang! Boom! At the same time, a ball of fire and a powerful shockwave erupted from the top of the other two buildings. The two explosions echoed in the cloudy sky. Koju and Yukaina finally saw what was going on when the flames and shockwaves dissipated. At the top of the two buildings, Vatler was wearing a white western suit and Kodori was wearing a feather dress. One had a dragon-shaped familiar circling around him, while the other was bathed in flames. In front of Kodori and Vatler were the charred Chiliga and Brooder, who was covered in wounds and had his armor shattered. Kodori and Vatler's battle is over. Apart from immortal Muayi, all the prisoners of the prison barrier had been defeated. Seeing this scene, Natsuki, who had been confronting Sendoki, I couldn't help but reveal a smile. She looked at the expressionless long-haired girl in kimono standing on top of the opposite building. "Now you're the only one left, Ayi." For a moment, a look of pity appeared on Nayu's face. "Give up, You won't succeed, is that so?" Unfortunately, I didn't even look at her companion's defeat. She wasn't shaken by the fact that she's about to face a group of powerful enemies. Instead, she smiled. Seeing the smile on Immortal Capital Mu-Aye's face, Natsuki suddenly had a bad feeling. Chapter 992. Nayu frowned as she looked at the smiling Shindu Mu-Aye from afar. Natsuki and Ayi used to be good friends who trusted each other 10 years ago. Even though the confrontation in front of them made it hard to imagine how good their relationship was back then, it was still a fact. Nayu understood Ayi very well, just like how Ayi understood Nayu. Therefore, Nayu knew that with Aye's personality, even if the witch herself was a deceiving existence, this kind of behavior would not be a bluff. Flames, lightning, an afterimage, and a golden mist appeared behind Natsuki. They formed Kotori, Koju, Yukaina, and Vatler. Natsuki-chan, Minamiya-sensei? Koju and Yukaina came to Natsuki's side. They looked at Sendoku-ai with Natsuki. Kotori quietly returned to Wu Yan's side. She maintained her fairy form and retracted her flames. Kotori looked straight ahead, she didn't look at Wu Yan. "Aren't we going to capture her?" "They might not be as strong as Wu Yan and Yukaina-ai, but the 5 prison barrier criminals are strong. They're much stronger than normal prison barrier criminals. With the strength of these 5 prison barrier criminals, the 5 of them would definitely be able to defeat them. She should be the strongest existence in the prison barrier formation. In other words, if he could take down all 5 of them, the release of the prison barrier wouldn't be too much of a surprise. Now that Sutra, Giliola, Chilica, and Brooder have been defeated, Fairy Mui-ai is the only one left. If he took her down, this incident would basically be over." Wu Yan knew what Kotori meant, but both he and Kotori have a feeling. Things aren't going to end so easily. Natsuki, Yukaina, and Koju have the same feeling. There's one as well. Only Vatler. He's still the same. "You're not going to make a move?" Vatler raised an eyebrow. He closed his eyes and smiled. "Although I've already enjoyed myself to my heart's content, it's still possible for me to take action." Natsuki glanced at Vatler. She ignored him. His gaze swept forward. "Ayi, what on earth are you scheming? You still haven't noticed?" Immortal Mu-Aye chuckled. It was unknown if he was regretting that the tacit understanding between him and Natsuki was not as good as he had imagined or if he was making fun of Natsuki's lack of intelligence. "Did you think that I would come here with my men without any preparations and fight with you openly? Or do you think I'm just standing here waiting for those guys to lose?" Hearing this, everyone's expression changed. Ayi smiled happily. "My name is Sien Du Mu-Aye. She is known as the Witch of the Secretary." Hearing this, Natsuki seemed to understand something and her body trembled. Yi, could it be that you, a book that records the knowledge and incantations related to magic, allowing you to gain power? This is a magic grimoire. Immortal City Yi raised his head and met Natsuki's eyes. As for me, I have the ability to recreate the magic and curses contained in the grimoire through writing. That's why I'm known as the Witch Secretary. Natsuki, the time you've given me is more than enough. As soon as his voice fell, the atmosphere at the scene suddenly became strange. It was as if the color of the world had changed. The originally violent air seemed to have a sticky touch. At this moment, even gravity seemed to have changed. The atmosphere became heavy. Mysterious words glowed with golden light and released powerful magic waves. They lit up on the roof of the building where Wu Yan and the others were standing. Everyone was shocked. They instinctively took a few steps back and looked around at the small words that covered the entire apartment. Their nerves tensed up. This is... Natsuki carefully observed the words filled with magic. Her expression finally changed. Number 014's magic rune. She abruptly raised her head and looked at the smiling Yi. Her eyes gradually narrowed and her expression darkened. You still haven't given up on taking my memories? Yi. I've said it before, I'm only taking back what originally belonged to me. Yi withdrew the smile on his face and calmly waved his hand. Give me back the Dark Oath Scroll, Natsuki, tch. Natsuki pursed her lips and fell silent. Minamiya-sensei. Yukaina clenched her teeth, raised her Snowfrost Wolf, and stabbed it into the ground. A ripple spread out like a wave, destroying all the runes around her. But before Yukaina could breathe a sigh of relief, the destroyed runes appeared once again with a surge of mana. How can this be? Yukaina cried out. It's useless, transfer student. Natsuki shook her head without looking back. Yi has already set up magic runes in the entire apartment. Unless you can instantly remove all the magic runes, with Yi's ability, he will only need to use a bit of mana to recreate a portion of the magic runes that have already been written once, then... Koju's expression hardened. He raised his pitch-black hand covered in red lines. Destroy the whole apartment. That won't work, right? This time it was Kotori who spoke. She looked at the floating runes and said expressionlessly. These runes seem to have been carved directly into the space. Even if you destroy the entire apartment, you won't be able to save Natsuki. As expected of a witch who specializes in spatial manipulation. Damn it! After hearing Kotori's words, Koju aimed his hand at Yi. It was obvious that he was going to take down Yi before the magic runes took effect. Unfortunately, Kotori poured a bucket of cold water on him. Give up, Akatsuki. With that woman's spatial manipulation, who knows where she'll teleport to before your familiar hits her? Then what do you think we should do? Koju shouted angrily. This won't work, that won't work. Are they supposed to just watch as Natsuki's memories are taken away? That girl is right, fourth primogenitor. Yi glanced at Koju. I think you should just give up. These runes are directed at Natsuki herself. Even if Natsuki escapes from Itagami Island, or if you guys use that dagger from last time, you won't be able to stop it when the entire space around you has turned into a grimoire. You guys are out of options. Unlike last time, Yi didn't need to take away Na-Yu's time this time. He only needed to take away her memories. Since even the space had turned into a grimoire and was directly targeting Na-Yu, unless he stuck the rune of breaking all laws on Na-Yu's head, he couldn't stop it. However, with a dagger in her head, even if it's the most common dagger, Natsuki's death is certain. It was also because of this that Yi could stand there calmly. In her opinion, although she had lost the battle, she had achieved her goal. Kotori chuckled at Yi's words. Who told you we're out of options? Yi's pupils contracted. Natsuki, Koju, Yukaina, and the others were stunned. Everyone on your side has made their appearance, right? Kotori's lips curled up. But our general hasn't made his appearance yet. Everyone present was stunned for a moment, but they immediately understood what coterie meant. Their expressions changed. Ping! At this moment, a magical wave as scorching as magma erupted without the slightest warning. Like a flash of light at dawn, it instantly illuminated every corner of the space. Wah! Yi was startled. She could feel that her magic runes were starting to tremble under the sweep of this magic power. This is something that has never happened before. Yi's pupils dilated as she sensed the runes. For a moment, she fell into a daze. Before Immortal City Yi could recover from his shock, a flame suddenly ignited in front of him amidst the storm-like magic waves. The flame was pure white in color. As the white flame ignited, it was as if something had been detonated at the scene, causing a sea of white flames to erupt. A soft voice reverberated in everyone's ears. Descend. Chapter 993. Descend. The extremely soft call reverberated clearly in the surrounding space, rising and falling like an echo, drifting in all directions. Under this echo-like call, the white flame seemed to have been injected with something to ignite it. With a whistling sound, it swelled up. Thump thump. With a sound similar to a heartbeat, the white flame was like an erupting volcano. With a muffled sound, it suddenly spread out. In just an instant, in everyone's vision, there was only a burning white sea of fire left. As far as the eye could see, it was filled with white flames. White flames. A circular spatial barrier appeared around Yi, as if she was trying to protect herself from the white flames. However, when the white flames burned around her, they seemed to have a mind of their own and separated to the left and right. They didn't even touch Yi, causing her to be stunned on the spot. It's that flame. Koju was shocked when he saw the white flames. He recalled the first time he met Wu Yan. At that time, the familiar in his body suddenly went berserk. Even the lion's gold came running out on its own. Koju thought Itagami Island would be destroyed because of him and fell into despair. However, the white flames in front of him incinerated his lion's gold in an instant. Now, the owner of the white flames is about to appear. Koju and Yukaina, who had a deep impression of the white flames, widened their eyes in shock, even though the light from the white flames made their eyes hurt. They didn't want to look away. Vatler was the same as Koju and Yukaina. It's that familiar. Masai's eyes were filled with excitement, and Vatler's face was filled with a crazed desire to fight. After all, the first time he came to Itagami Island, he was defeated by a familiar with white flames. Natsuki and Kotori stared at the center of the white flames. They didn't say anything, but their eyes were filled with different emotions. Natsuki is looking forward to it. She can't wait for Wu Yan to turn the tide and save her once again. Kotori is happy. She's happy for no reason. As a fire spirit, Kotori loves to see Wu Yan use his fire abilities. Under everyone's watchful eyes, Wu Yan opened his eyes in the center of the white flames. He raised his arm with red veins. Powerful magical energy rose from his body like a tidal wave, accompanied by a bloody mist. Come! White dragons burning flame. Heaven and earth. Everything went silent. The white flames retracted and returned to Wu Yan's side in the blink of an eye. Then, it combined with the rising demonic power and blood mist, and with a swirl, it condensed into a figure. It's a dragon standing on 2 feet. The white flames were fluttering like fluff. The dragon's entire body was white, and between its eyebrows, there were 2 long whiskers and ribbons that seemed to be condensed from flames. They fluttered up and down under the influence of the white flames, looking elegant and free. White wings spread out on both sides of its body. There was a pair of sharp dragon claws attached to the wings. Like the flame-like object floating between its eyebrows, its tail, which was much larger in size, swayed back and forth, swaying along with the white flames. Every time it swayed back and forth, it stirred up a wave of white flame ripples, which swept across the white dragon's body and its eyes, setting off the pair of azure eyes. It's a completely different familiar from the black dragon's lightning trap. If the black dragon's lightning trap is the ruler of the earth, then the white dragon's burning flame is the ruler of the earth. It's a god that descended from the heavens. Dignified, yet incomparably elegant. Looking at the godlike white dragon, everyone was in a daze, including Vatler, who had already seen it once. So beautiful! Yakina was at a loss for words. She could only use the word beautiful to describe her feelings. Is that the familiar controlling the flames? Natsuki and Kotori focused their attention on the situation. It finally appeared again. Vatler resisted the urge to charge and fight the white dragon's burning flame. He clenched his fist. He didn't even care that his fingernails were bleeding. Stop joking around. Koju grimaced. His body was trembling when he tried to suppress a berserk familiar. Do you have to go berserk every time that vampire teacher releases a familiar? Koju gritted his teeth. Koju wasn't the only one, I was as well. The immortal city Mu-a-Yi had already felt threatened by the white dragon burning flame. Who the hell is he? Why does he have a familiar like this? Such a powerful familiar. I had a feeling she had to stop Wu Yen from doing what he wanted to do. However, the white flames around I stopped her from acting rashly. She could only spit out resentful breath. Previously, Yi had been plotting how to escape from the prison barrier, plotting how to plot against Nayu, and even after escaping from the prison barrier, he was still plotting how to seize Nayu's memories. Of all her calculations, she missed out on Wu Yen. He was able to set up a barrier that trapped all the criminals in the prison barrier. He was also able to steal Natsuki's memories. How can this man be a normal person? She was too careless. Moreover, it was very likely that this time, he would fall because of his own carelessness. Oh, under Ice's resentful gaze, the white dragon's burning flame raised its head and let out a long dragon roar. Pring! As if it had received a summons, the ground within 100 meters immediately cracked open. Then, white pillars of fire erupted from the cracks on the ground. Whoosh! In just a few seconds, the white pillar of fire filled the entire space. As it whistled, it suddenly scattered and exploded into wisps of fire that sprinkled on the magic runes. Then, it fiercely burned them. That's right. Runes. Burning. Impossible! I cried out in disbelief. Impossible! How could magic runes that were directly engraved in space burn? Could it be that the flames can burn space? No, you're wrong. A ghostly voice resounded from the center of the distant flames. The white dragon's burning flame doesn't burn space. It burns time. That's right. Time. The white dragon's flames can't burn anything. The only thing it can burn is time. Therefore, the rune's time was burned away by the white flames. Naturally, they couldn't exist anymore. The white dragon burns time. The black dragon shatters space. This was the power of the black dragon and white dragon. At the same time, the white flames around Ye's body, under the control of the white dragon, pounced on the space barrier protecting Yi and burned the space barrier into nothingness. Bang! With a crisp sound, the space barrier shattered. The white flames immediately pounced on I looked at the incoming white flames in despair. She closed her eyes and waited for death to come. However, the flames suddenly stopped in the air and no longer pounced on I. Instead, a palm strike landed on Ice's neck. With a muffled groan, Ice's consciousness gradually faded away. She slowly fell to the ground. In her hand, she was still holding number 014. She opened her eyes with great difficulty and looked at number 014 in her hand. Her heart was filled with unwillingness. Is this the end? With this unwillingness, Yi closed his eyes. Finally, his consciousness completely faded away. Woo! The slowly burning white flames within 100-meter radius slowly faded away with another dragon roar. Together with the elegant white dragon, they disappeared from this world. Natsuki and Wu Yen stood side by side in front of I. Natsuki bent down and picked up number 14. At this moment, ding! Character Natsuki Nangong's abnormal status has been removed. Yao Beast Mark has been activated. Vassal Beast transformation has begun. Ding. Obtained Vassal Beast, Witch of Void. Natsuki's expression changed when she sensed the changes in her body. Her petite body turned into specks of black light and floated into Wu Yan's body. Wu Yan smiled helplessly when he sensed a familiar presence in his body. Chapter 994. The sky was emitting white and blue light. Thick white clouds were floating in the sky. The sun, which had not been seen for a long time, reappeared here. Together with rays of light and heat, the sun shone on the blue ocean and the artificial island that was glowing with vitality in the blink of an eye. 5 days have passed since the prison barrier was liberated and all the prisoners escaped. It's a miracle that even the heavens are paying attention to the situation on Itagami Island. 5 days ago, ever since the prison barrier was liberated, the sky above Itagami Island has been covered by dark clouds, giving off a heavy feeling. 5 days later, the sky seemed to have sensed the change in Itagami Island. The gloomy sky that lasted for 5 days finally dissipated at a speed visible to the naked eye. Along with it came the dark clouds that covered the entire sky. At the same time, a glass-like barrier appeared around Itagami Island without any warning. This is the barrier that protected Itagami Island for the past 5 days. After 5 days of uninterrupted protection, the barrier that trapped all the criminals in the prison barrier finally seemed to have died of old age. It had perfectly completed its mission. Amidst a series of kacha-kacha sounds, it shattered into pieces that filled the sky. Some of them sank into the sea while some of them floated into the sky, then they disappeared. Itagami Island is as calm as ever. At the northern edge of Itagami Island, the top of the ancient island that originally housed the prison barrier, Templar Castle, is currently bustling with activity. The scene is quite strange. On the desolate ancient island, there are people lying down or sitting on the ground. Their eyes are closed, there are some injuries on their bodies. Their breathing is steady, it's obvious that they are all in a deep sleep. Or rather, they are all in a deep sleep. They have all been hypnotized into a deep slumber. If one were to observe carefully, they would discover traces of murderous aura and ominous aura faintly reverberating from these people, telling others that they were not good people. Along with the murderous aura and ominous aura, there were also some powerful auras, proving what kind of strength these people who had fallen into a deep slumber possessed. These are the prisoners that caused quite a bit of trouble for Itagami Island over the past 5 days. 5 days have passed and the barrier's duration is about to end. If they still can't catch all the escaped criminals, that would be a real problem. Luckily, the Special Administrative Region's police force and Wu Yan's group worked hard to catch all of them. All the prisoners have been captured. That's why Wu Yan and Natsuki brought all the prisoners here today to build a new prison barrier and lock them up again. Sweeping across the top of the ancient island, one could see that the Templar castle that had collapsed into ruins, which was the original prison barrier, was no longer there. The collapsed rocks and dust on the ground were all cleaned up. All that was left was a bare, empty space. There was no trace of the prison barrier of the past. Wu Yan stood in front of the empty space, quietly watching Yukaina, who is busy with something. Yukaina is standing next to him, wearing a black Gothic lace dress and holding a parasol. Natsuki has returned to her original appearance. Kotori and Koju are guarding the prison barrier. Nagisa and Kanon are staying at home. Yukaina used her Snowfrost Wolf to draw something on the map. She sprinkled all sorts of ores, and mineral water on the map. Natsuki glanced at Wu Yan when she saw Yukaina sweating profusely. Your student is so busy she's about to get a heatstroke, and you're just standing there watching. You're worse than I thought. You're a person who always orders your students to do missions for you. What right do you have to criticize me? Wu Yan retorted. Besides, Yukaina was the one who asked for it. It's not like I didn't want to help. Are you still trying to find excuses for yourself? Natsuki narrowed her eyes. Aren't you a little too ugly? I say, Natsuki. Wu Yen sighed and shook his head. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Is it so hard to become my familiar? Do you have to keep burying me? Humph. Natsuki raised her chin and looked at Wu Yen. Then tell me what you did to me. How did I become your familiar? I've heard of familiars living in human form, but I've never heard of a human turning into a familiar. How did you do it? Even if you ask me. Wu Yen rubbed his forehead and smiled bitterly. I don't know how I should explain it to you. Natsuki stared at Wu Yen with her big, expressive eyes. Wu Yen felt a little guilty under her stare. She snorted and turned her head away. Forget it, do whatever you want. Wu Yen asked cautiously when he saw Natsuki's expressionless face. Natsuki, are you angry? Not yet. Natsuki didn't even turn her head. But if you don't want to find a time to explain it to me, I don't know. Wu Yen sighed in relief when he heard Natsuki. He nodded. Don't worry, I'll explain it to you when I have the chance. Wu Yen asked in confusion. By the way, you said there are familiars in human form in this world, right? Is there really such a thing? Well, who knows? Natsuki looked at Koju, who was yawning not far away. Wu Yan's eyes lit up as he started thinking about something. Sensei. Yukaina ran to Wu Yen and Natsuki with her frost wolf. She wiped the sweat off her forehead. Is everything ready? He handed a bottle of water and a handkerchief to Yukaina. Yukaina accepted the bottle and the handkerchief and nodded. Everything has been prepared according to your instructions. Good. Wu Yen patted Yukaina's shoulder. Thank you for your hard work. Not really. Yukaina shook her head. This kind of work is much easier compared to the time when I was monitoring Senior Koju, who was yawning, almost fell to the ground when he heard Yukaina's words. Wu Yen smiled sheepishly. Anyways, thank you for your hard work. Wu Yen looked at the empty space in front of them. He walked up to it. Yukaina stood beside Natsuki. She and Natsuki stared at Wu Yen. Ripples appeared in their eyes. They're both curious. They're curious about what Wu Yen will do. Under everyone's watchful eyes, Wu Yen walked to the edge of a large diagram drawn by Yukaina. He knelt down on one knee and he slowly placed his hand on the diagram. Tartarus prison. This is what Wu Yen used to replace the prison barrier. In ancient Greek mythology, after Zeus, the king of the gods, overthrew the rule of his father, Uranus, he imprisoned the defeated Titans who served Uranus in a prison in the underground world. That prison is called Tartarus. Legend had it that Tartarus had doors, windows, and walls that even the Titans could not destroy. It also had an automatic guard effect. Even the gods would not be able to escape if they were locked inside. Wu Yen didn't know if the prison of Tartarus could imprison a real god, but if it's used to imprison criminals, even Vatler wouldn't be able to get out of this place. Wu Yen channeled his mana into the diagram in front of him at an unimaginable speed. Ancient runes came out of his mouth one after another. Soon, the diagram in front of him lit up. It was a magic array so complicated that just looking at it would give anyone a headache. The light on the magic array grew brighter and brighter. In the end, the surging magic fluctuations carried the majestic light and soared into the sky. Wung! With a soft sound, the ground started to shake. Then, under everyone's shocked gazes, a bronze prison that was several times larger than the Templar castle slowly floated up from the ground within the magic circle. This is the prison of Tartarus. Chapter 995. Itagami Island Saikai Academy. Standing at the edge of the rooftop, Wu Yen looked down at the students who are slowly entering the school and going to school as per normal. He chuckled and he turned around to look behind him. Thank you for your help this time. It's my pleasure to be of help to you. The one who said this was an intellectual girl with two braids in front of her and a pair of glasses on her face. She was the Lion King organization's third saint, Xian Gaiong herself. At this moment, Koyomi is staring at Wu Yen with her eyes hidden under her spectacles. It seems like you've already accomplished what you wanted to do, you can say that. Wu Yen replied calmly, but he didn't say anything else. He did not dare to look down on the girl in front of him just because she was so young. The 3 saints of the Lion King organization, to be able to sit in this position, even if they were young, their wisdom would definitely be at the level of an old fox. He did not want to be dragged into the other party's rhythm, so it was better to be perfunctory. Xian Gaiyong glanced at the area in front of her as if she can see through his thoughts. She pondered for a moment before speaking. Most of the residents of Itagami Island have returned to the island. Only a small portion of the higher-ups of Itagami Island know about the prison barrier being released. The rest are investigating the reason behind the chaos on Itagami Island. However, I think they'll give up soon. Hearing this, Wu Yen raised his head and looked at Xian Gaiyong meaningfully. The reason Natsuki hibernated in the prison barrier was to pay the price of signing a contract with the devil. However, since she knows about the contract, why would she want to sign a contract with the devil if she has to pay a huge price to obtain power? Is it because Natsuki craves power? Or is it because she doesn't mind paying a small price compared to power? None of the above. Natsuki is a natural-born succubus. When she was born, when she had just arrived in this world, she had already become a witch. Why would a newborn sign a contract with the devil? Natsuki didn't become a succubus of her own volition. She's a tool created by the management of Itagami Island. She was designed to be the manager of the prison barrier. She's a pure-blooded succubus whose soul was stolen at birth. Her fate wasn't decided by her own volition. That's what Natsuki is all about. That's why Xian Gaiyong said those words in a roundabout way. She's hinting to Wu Yen that the people who designed Natsuki don't know the truth about the prison barrier being released is because Natsuki was saved. If the people who plotted against Natsuki knew that Natsuki had awoken from her eternal curse and freed the prison barrier, then they would be able to escape. Even if Wu Yen isn't afraid, there will be trouble. Obviously, since those people were able to design the manager of the prison barrier, their status was definitely not low. With their status, it was impossible for them not to know the truth behind the prison barrier being released. But now, Xian Gaiyong said that apart from a very small number of people, the rest of the people were still investigating the truth of the matter. It's obvious that the truth should have been easy to get. Since they're still investigating, there must be someone behind this. As for who the culprit is, there's no need to confirm it after hearing Xian Gaiyong's words. Moreover, they have the power to stop those with a high status. Only someone with a similarly high status would be able to do such a thing. Xian Gaiyong is trying to get on his good side. But why? Is it because he's a primogenitor? Thousands of thoughts flashed through his mind in a second. On the surface, Wu Yen only paused for a second before looking at Xian Gaiyong. I will remember. Wu Yen walked past Koyong and headed for the exit of the rooftop. Lastly, can I ask you a question? Just as Wu Yen was about to step out of the rooftop, Kuomi's voice rang in his ears. What do you think of the current situation? Pausing for a second, Wu Yan's lips curled into a smile. He walked out of the rooftop, leaving behind a sentence that echoed in Xian Gaiyong's ears. I don't know. Anyway, I have no interest in building an empire of the night or leading the vampires. Wu Yan's figure and his footsteps gradually faded away. Xian Gaiyong quietly looked down at the campus below, watching the students chatting and laughing as they walked together. After a long while, he sighed. What a cunning primogenitor! Walking down the stairs of the high school section's rooftop, Wu Yan's mind rang with a series of system notifications. Ding! Mission 3 completed. Obtained 30,000 equipment points, item points, ability points, and summoning points. Instance World, Bloodlust Rampage Instance World Mission, Redemption Mission 1. Become an attack magician in Itagami City. Completed. Reward: 5,000 equipment points, item points, ability points, and summoning points. Mission 2. Stop the Ascension Ritual and save the fake angel, Kanase Natsuin. Completed. Reward: 10,000 equipment points, item points, ability points, and summoning points. Mission 3. Find out the secret behind Natsuki Minamiya and deal with it. Completed. Reward: 30,000 equipment points, item points, ability points, and summoning points. Character: Wuyen. Equipment points: 47170. Item points: 1305000. Ability points: 46,000. Summoning points: 47300. Level 80. Ding. Instance World Mission completed. User can now choose to leave the current instance world at any time. Instance World Mission is now open to user. Entering Bloodlust Rampage World again. System will no longer issue Instance World Mission. User can now enter and exit Bloodlust Rampage World at will. Finally, all 3 Instance World missions are completed. Wu Yen took in a deep breath of fresh air as he listened to the notification in his mind. He remembered the reason he came to this world was to summon his own familiar. He didn't want the bloodline ability he awakened to become useless. However, he did not expect that so many things had happened in the past month or so since he had arrived in this world. Compared to a month ago, he only had Kodori by his side. Now, not only did he have 2 powerful familiars, he even turned 2 young girls into his familiars. In addition to the Nalacuvala incident, the fake angel incident, and the prison barrier incident, Wu Yen felt like he's been in this world for a long time now. I wonder how Shoujo, Mikoto, and the others are doing in the Spalier world. How are my sisters doing? I'm starting to miss them. Was it time to go back? Wu Yen was so engrossed in his thoughts that he didn't notice a petite figure blocking his path. As a middle school teacher, what are you doing on the rooftop of a high school building? The sudden voice startled Wu Yen, who was in a daze. At the same time, it also woke him up from his stupor. He reflexively looked in front of him, and when he saw the doll-like face staring at him with an expressionless face, he helplessly sighed. Oh, it's not Suki. Wu Yen shook his head and chuckled. Don't scare me, okay? You can scare me to death. I've been standing here since the beginning. You're the one who walked right into me. Natsuki put her hands on her hips with a mischievous smile on her face. Judging from your state of mind, something interesting must have happened on the rooftop. Are you no longer interested in the middle school students and are now eyeing the high school students? What are you talking about? Wu Yen rolled his eyes. What do you mean by eyeing the high school students? I was just thinking about something. Thinking about something? Wu Yen nodded. He looked at Natsuki's confused expression and pondered for a moment. He seemed to have made a decision and held her hand. It's good that you're here. It's time to talk to you about something. Oh. Natsuki glanced at Wu Yen. She seemed to know what Wu Yen was going to talk about, so she didn't object to it. Instead, she said something. Before that, let go of my hand. Don't tell me you are shy? Anyway, let go of my hand. You paused for a moment, right? That's right? You must be, right? You. Chapter 996. Itagami Island, Southern Residential District, Room 703. Wu Yen and Kodori sat on the same sofa as Natsuki and Kanon. Wu Yen and Kodori exchanged glances when they saw the troubled looks on the 2 girls' faces. They didn't say anything as they waited for the girls to digest everything they just told them. Due to their silence, the atmosphere in the living room is heavy. Natsuki raised her head and looked at Wu Yen and Kodori. In other words, the 2 of you aren't actually from this world, but from another world with the help of a very magical system, right? Yes. It might be difficult for you to understand the specifics since you haven't been summoned, but that's the gist of it. Kodori was the one who answered Natsuki. It was rare for her to be so serious at a time like this. In short, we're not from this world, that much is undeniable. He's not from this world. Kanon looked at Wu Yen with an uneasy expression. Then, Sensei and Kotori-chan, will you leave this world one day? The room went silent for 2 to 3 seconds. Natsuki lowered her head for a moment before looking up again. Her gem-like eyes stared at the two in front of her. You chose to tell me everything now, does that mean? Soon, you will leave this world, right? Kanon's heart skipped a beat when she heard Natsuki's words. Her green eyes flashed with sadness. Kotori bitterly smiled. Wu Yen panicked as well. He quickly shook his head and waved his hand. That's right, but I will bring you two with me when the time comes. After all, you are my familiars. Hearing this, the sadness in Kanon's eyes disappeared. She lit up. A beautiful smile appeared on her face, and even Na Yu's expression became a lot better. Neither Natsuki nor Kanon felt a sense of belonging to Itagami Island, especially Kanon. Natsuki is a witch designed by the island's management. How could she have any positive thoughts about Itagami Island? Natsuki only cared about her students on Itagami Island. The reason why she fought against a Yi 10 years ago was to protect her classmates who were still students at that time. For so many years, they had been guarding this island only because the people that Natsuki cared about were on the island. She doesn't care about Itagami Island. Also, Wu Yen did say that the moment he leaves this world, time will stop flowing. Natsuki didn't really believe that such a ridiculous thing would happen, but if that's the case, then she can rest assured that she can follow Wu Yen. She didn't want to abandon her students, nor did she want her career as a teacher to end here. As for Kanon, she will follow wherever Wu Yen and the others go. She decided to follow them when Wu Yen acknowledged her as his family. Becoming your familiar sure is troublesome. Natsuki pointed her fan at Wu Yan's nose. She had a serious look on her face as she said this. That's how it is for us, but don't you have a middle schooler girlfriend? How is she going to solve this? Nagisa. Wu Yen and Kotori furrowed their brows. Aren't you going to explain it to her? Natsuki asked expressionlessly. Wu Yen smiled bitterly. Forget it. If I tell her, it will only add to her troubles. Anyway, the time in this world will stop. It doesn't matter. Are you sure you want to do this? Natsuki, Kanon, and even Kotori looked at Wu Yen with a serious expression. You have to think this through, Natsuki said. It's best if you don't brush her off. Kotori glanced at Wu Yen. A girl's heart can be unpredictable. What are you talking about? Wu Yen didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Kanon looked at Wu Yen and said something. Sensei, if Nagisa-chan finds out that you left her out of such an important matter, she'll be very sad. Wu Yen was stunned. Indeed, with Nagisa's personality, it's not impossible. Wu Yen felt a headache coming on. Then what do you guys think we should do? Should we tell her? With Nagisa's personality, she'll definitely ask to leave with us. Nagisa was a very innocent girl. She followed her heart, unlike Natsuki, who had to consider her students and her job. Even if she had a brother at home, once she set her mind on something, she would still carry it out. If Nagisa knew they were going to leave this world, even if she knew the time flow of this world was going to stop, she wouldn't be able to think rationally. She knew she couldn't bear to see Wu Yen leave. Under such circumstances, it wasn't strange for them to suggest leaving together. But Nagisa is just a normal, innocent girl. Is it appropriate for her to leave the Spalier world? That's why Wu Yen didn't want to explain to Nagisa. But now, it seems that not even explaining is a problem. Everyone looked at each other in dismay. For a moment, they felt helpless. Natsuki said casually as she patted the lace fan in her hand. Don't you have the ability to turn people into familiars? If you turn that middle schooler into a familiar as well, it shouldn't be a big deal to bring her along, right? It's not that easy. Wu Yen sighed. Didn't I already explain it to you guys? The reason I can turn you guys into familiars is because our minds and bodies are compatible. You guys also meet the requirements of the Yao Beast mark. That's why I can turn you guys into familiars. But what do you mean by mental and physical compatibility? What do you mean by compatible? How are we supposed to turn you guys into familiars? That's a new problem. Kotori bit her lollipop impatiently. Can we come to a conclusion at this rate? Natsuki narrowed her eyes. She seemed to be thinking about something. Then, she looked at Kanon. Kanase Natsuin, you said that the reason you were able to stay in this world as a fake angel was because Yen modified your runes and provided you with magical power, right? Kanase Kanon was taken aback for a moment before nodding. Natsuki fell into deep thought. It's also because Yen took away my demon contract and provided me with mana. That's why I'm able to continue using the witch's abilities. Do you guys think that the so-called compatibility between our bodies is similar to this? Everyone was stunned for a moment before their eyes lit up at the same time. That's very likely. Kotori removed the jewel from her mouth. Her expression tensed up. That's the similarity between the two of you. It's very likely. What about mental compatibility? Wu Yen quickly asked. How was your mental state back then? Kanon blinked her eyes. She blushed when she saw Wu Yan's expectant expression. She lowered her head and she started bashfully. I don't know. At that time, I was returning to my angelic form. I felt Sensei's mana flowing into my body. At that time, I really missed Sensei. Missed? Wu Yen and Kotori asked in confusion. They looked at Kanon before looking at Natsuki. What about you? Wu Yen and Kotori saw the panic in Natsuki's eyes. She turned her head away in a fluster and she didn't say anything else. Kotori chuckled when she saw this. She propped her face up with one hand. You said you missed him. I think the so-called mental compatibility between the two of you might mean that your feelings for Oniai-san reached a certain height at some point in time. Ha! Wu Yen opened his mouth. He said with a hint of resentment. That can't be. His question was answered by an amused expression, a shy expression, and an expression that was glaring at him. At this point, if Wu Yen still doesn't get it, he might as well find a horse to kick him to death. He bitterly laughed, but he quickly regained his smile. If that's the case, it might be possible to turn Nagisa into a familiar. Chapter 997. Early morning. The clouds gradually turned white, and the sky gradually turned blue. The golden brilliance gradually turned the earth green, bringing with it a trace of vitality, giving the world a color. There's still some coolness in the air, keeping Itagami Island's morning from being too hot. However, this coolness will fade soon enough and the sun will return to the land once again. One has to admit that the temperature on Itagami Island is torture. Before daybreak and the temperature remained cool, Nagisa had already opened her sleepy eyes. She patted her cheeks and pulled herself together. Then, she stretched herself and got up from the bed. Her eyes blinked as she regained her energy. She seems to be able to control the color of the world. Nagisa is still wearing a short-sleeved pajama top and shorts. She doesn't seem to have any intention of changing. She opened the door and walked out. This is Nagisa's daily routine. Compared to her older brother who sleeps late, Nagisa wakes up early in the morning. She's a clean freak, so she has to clean the house, make breakfast, change her clothes and wake Koju up. Compared to the two true ancestors, Nagisa's life was much more regulated. Plus, she has a cheerful face and personality. Koju is very lucky to have a sister like her. It's no wonder he's willing to become a Siscon. Of course, Nagisa wakes up early. Naturally, she would complain about her brother who was sleeping in every day. Seriously, Kojo-kun, I used to like waking up early when I was in middle school. I also liked to play basketball early in the morning. I would even go to the basketball club when I was in school. Since I got promoted to high school, I've become lazy. Is it because I don't play basketball anymore? Nagisa yawned and muttered to herself as she walked into the living room in this state. Teacher also seems to like to sleep in, but he's a vampire. It's hard to wake up early in the morning, unlike Kojo-kun. Isn't it good to be energetic? You're like an old man. Fortunately, Guching was still sleeping after being shot so many times for no reason. Otherwise, even if he woke up, he would have fainted from anger because of his beloved sister's words. He would have fallen asleep again. He's also a vampire. He's the world's strongest vampire. Koju's daily life is a lot worse than Wu Yan's, at least in this place. Nagisa, who was still complaining about her teacher, stepped into the living room and saw the situation in the living room. Her expression froze and her mouth fell open. Yo. Good morning, Nagisa. A voice filled with the radiance of spring rang out from the dining table in front of them. At the same time, it woke up the stunned Nagisa. When Nagisa saw the full face of the person greeting her with a smile on his face, she exclaimed in surprise. Teacher! I see, Nagisa usually wakes up early. Wu Yen smiled warmly at Nagisa's surprised expression. Fortunately, I woke up before dawn. Otherwise, I might have been chased out. Teacher, you. Nagisa opened her mouth and stuttered. She lowered her head and looked at her revealing pajamas. Her face immediately turned red. Wah! With a sorrowful cry, Nagisa fled into her room and slammed the door shut. Wu Yan's smile froze on his face. Why are you up so early? Why are you in my house? Are you hungry? But teacher, don't you know how to cook? It's much better than Nagisa's. Nagisa changed into casual clothes and rushed to Wu Yan. She took out her machine gun without hesitation. She almost buried Wu Yan with her words, but anyone could see the joy in her eyes. Maybe for Nagisa, being able to see the person she liked the moment she woke up was something worth celebrating. Wu Yan did plan to celebrate Nagisa. Wu Yan felt better when he saw the joy in Nagisa's eyes. He pulled her to the dining table and sat down. Well, once in a while, I feel like waking up early too. Wu Yan teased Nagisa. For example, making a breakfast filled with love for your girlfriend or something like that. Nagisa only noticed the covered plates on the table when she heard Wu Yan. Thinking back to what Wu Yan just said, Nagisa understood what Wu Yan was trying to say. A faint blush gradually appeared on Nagisa's face, and she lowered her head in embarrassment, but her eyes remained fixed on the plate of food in front of her. Her heart was filled with joy, and her voice was as soft as a mosquito's. Thank you, Sensei. What are you thanking me for? Isn't this what I should do? Wu Yan said flirtatiously. He was relieved when he saw Nagisa's happy expression. Waking Nagisa up so early in the morning with the roughest method wasn't a waste of time. Looking at Nagisa, it shouldn't be a problem for her to reach the level of mental compatibility. That's right, the reason Wu Yan woke up so early in the morning was because he wanted Nagisa's mental compatibility with the Yao beast mark. Yesterday, Kotori, Natsuki, and Kanon had analyzed the conditions for activating the demonic beast mark. Finally, there was something different about it. Body compatibility referred to a connection similar to magic power. Mental compatibility refers to raising the target's feelings for him to a certain level. With this initial conjecture, it's possible to turn Nagisa into his familiar. After all, Wu Yan was able to establish a magical connection with Nagisa with the help of the entity that temporarily borrowed Nagisa's body to summon the Yao Sala's azure ice. This is a privilege granted to Wu Yan, the privilege to summon Aoka-chan no Tsang-bing. Now, this privilege is helping Wu Yan out. Now, all he needs to do is to raise Nagisa's feelings for him to a certain level. Then, both physical compatibility and mental compatibility will be met. As for the last condition, the property must meet the requirement. Wu Yan and Ko didn't know what the requirement is, but they have no choice but to bet on Nagisa meeting the requirement. There's only one thing Wu Yen can do. Let Nagisa reach a state of mental compatibility with him. In other words, he needs to stimulate Nagisa's feelings for him. That's why Wu Yen woke up early in the morning to make breakfast with love. Judging from the current situation, the effect seemed to be quite good. Wanting to strike while the iron is hot, Wu Yen opened the plates on the table one by one, exposing the contents of the dishes to Nagisa's gaze. Looking at the dishes on the plate, Nagisa was stunned. At the same time, her face turned even redder than before. That was because the dishes on the plates in front of them, regardless of whether they tasted good or not, the shape of the dishes love. All of them are love. Teacher. Nagisa couldn't even lift her head. She shouted at Wu Yen in embarrassment. How could you make such dishes? I'm so sorry. What's wrong? Wu Yen flinched before lowering his head in disappointment. Nagisa doesn't like it? And no. Nagisa shook her head in a fluster. Her face was red. But what if Guqing sees this? Don't worry, he won't see. What do you mean? And nothing. Wu Yen smiled sheepishly and passed a pair of chopsticks to Nagisa. Nagisa, have a taste. It's a holiday today, I'll take you out to play later. Nagisa's eyes lit up, her spirits lifted. Then, Nagisa, I'm going to eat. Nagisa happily enjoyed Wu Yan's breakfast of love. No one noticed that in Gu Cheng's room, there was a figure tied up on the bed. Chapter 998. Itagami Island Cornerstone Gate. As the tallest building on the island, Cornerstone Gate is without a doubt the most spectacular attraction in Itagami Island. From the top of the building, one can see the entirety of the island. The lower part of the island is the foundation of the artificial island. The upper part of the island is the center of management of the artificial island. That's not all. Inside the Cornerstone Gate, there are some high-end shops, historical museums, and other similar attractions. Of course, the Cornerstone Gate also has a place for visitors to enjoy the view and sightseeing. That's why visitors from outside of Itagami Island would choose this place as their first stop. Therefore, the Cornerstone Gate isn't just the most important place on the island, it's also the most spectacular attraction on the island. Naturally, this became Wu Yen and Nagisa's first match on their holiday date. Standing at the base of the Cornerstone Gate, Wu Yen looked at the towering Cornerstone Gate that is comparable to the Arena Tower in Silveria World Institute. Wu Yen couldn't help but sigh in awe. It's not that he hasn't been here before, it's just that the number of times he's been here is limited. He's only been here twice, and each time, it wasn't for anything good. The first time he came to the Cornerstone Gate was when the fake angel incident had just started. He was brought here by Natsuki and saw the first fake angel. It was also because of this that he started to complete the second dungeon quest. He formed a bond with Kanon. The second time was to save Natsuki, who had fallen into the devil's curse, which happened about a week ago. He stood on the top of this building and released the Black Dragon's lightning trap to find the location of the prison barrier. He freed Natsuki from the prison. 2 times he came here because of something like this. It's no wonder Wu Yen is so emotional. Fortunately, the 3rd time he came here was for a date with his cute girlfriend. Wu Yen is starting to wonder if he's incompatible with this building. Sensei. Wu Yen felt someone pushing his shoulder. He turned around and saw Nagisa's puffy cheek. Hey, what are you thinking about? Why didn't you hear me when I called you so many times? Nagisa glared at Wu Yen with her big red eyes. She didn't realize how cute she looks and how much damage she's doing to a certain wolf. Are you thinking about Kotori-chan or Kanon-chan? Or Minamiya-sensei? Nagisa pursed her lips and turned her head away angrily. You're here to have fun with me. Sensei, I hate you. Nope. Wu Yen laughed apologetically and grabbed Nagisa's hand. I'm just thinking about what happened a few days ago. Today belongs to Nagisa, don't worry. Really? Nagisa peeked at Wu Yen. Don't lie to me. I am not lying to you. Wu Yen chuckled when he saw Nagisa's expression. This innocent girl, she was only dragged to his side by coterie when she was messing around, but she didn't get angry because of his impure relationship with coterie, nor did she make a fuss because of his ambiguous relationship with Natsuki. Perhaps in her heart, she didn't. Her feelings are more important than other people's. She has to follow them. It had to be said that this was a girl that easily made people love and hate her, but she was also very lovable, making it impossible for people to ignore her. Nagisa regained her smile. The two of them held hands and entered the cornerstone door together. As they chatted and laughed, they came to the entrance of an exhibition room. This is Wu Yan's destination. Wah! The moment they entered the exhibition room, Nagisa let out an excited cheer. They were surrounded by resplendent golden walls, on which hung paintings that looked a little old but seemed brand new. A large chandelier that occupied the entire ceiling hung from the ceiling. It was also resplendent in gold and jade. Although the lights were not turned on during the day, the golden light on it was still shining brightly, making people not dare to look directly at it. Glass cabinets were placed all around the room. There were all sorts of things in the cabinet. There were artifacts from Itagami Island, a model of the island, things used by famous people, some demon hides, and even fossils of ancient creatures. There were all sorts of things in the cabinet. Nagisa's curiosity is piqued by all these things. That's why Wu Yen brought her here. Of course, this is only one of his goals. This is so fun. Nagisa widened her eyes and placed her hands on the glass window. She stared intently at the translucent stone inside. Her eyes were filled with joy and she almost pressed her face against the stone. This place is really interesting. There are a lot of interesting things, and they are all very beautiful. It is much more interesting than the museum next door. I have been to the museum next door many times, but I have never been to this place. I never knew that this place was so interesting. Why didn't I discover it before? What a pity! The joy ignited the flame of a chatterbox in Nagisa's heart. Words came out of her mouth like a machine gun. She didn't even take a break in between. It was truly admirable. I can't accept this. Nagisa tilted her head as she jogged to Wu Yen. Nagisa has lived on this island for 4 years, much longer than Sensei. Yet, Sensei was the one who discovered this place. Nagisa is a bit depressed. Is this your first time here? Wu Yen asked Nagisa with a grin. Nagisa pursed her lips in an unsatisfied manner. Yes, Nagisa didn't discover this place before. You don't know about it, right? Using a tone that can easily whet the appetite of others, Wu Yen dragged out his words like he's speaking from the heart. There is something here that is very, very worth seeing. Something worth seeing. Nagisa's interest was piqued. She asked nervously, What is it? What is it? Wu Yen snickered. He pulled Nagisa by the hand and they turned around a corner. Then, Nagisa saw a beautiful scenic spot. It was a well and a statue. A statue of a young man hugging an old woman. This is... Nagisa tilted her head in confusion. Compared to the other strange things, this statue is very ordinary. Could it be that this is the thing that is worth seeing? Wu Yen chuckled when he heard the doubt in Nagisa's voice. He pointed at the statue. Nagisa, do you know the relationship between the two people on the statue? Relationship? Nagisa froze and looked at the statue. She glanced at the young man and then at the old woman in his arms. Mother and son? Wu Yen shook his head and he gave an answer that shocked Nagisa. No, they are a couple. Couple? Just as she expected, Nagisa jumped in fright and shook her head vigorously. Impossible. The man is so young and the old woman. Nagisa. Wu Yen tightened his grip on Nagisa's hand as he interrupted her. That seems to be the case, but in fact, the man is older than the other one, huh? Nagisa was stunned. How can that be? How can a young man in his 20s and an old woman in her 70s be a couple? Of course I will. Wu Yen looked at the statue and he replied. That's because the man is a vampire and the old lady is just an ordinary person. Wu Yen smiled warmly when he saw Nagisa's relieved expression. There is a story behind this statue. Do you want to hear it? Story? Nagisa's curiosity was piqued. Chapter 999. As much as she didn't want to admit it, Nagisa loved to listen to stories. After all, Nagisa was only in her 3rd year of middle school. When she was in her 5th year of elementary school, Nagisa was someone who believed in the existence of Santa Claus. Nagisa couldn't hold back her curiosity, so she asked impatiently. What story? What story? Quick, tell me. Wu Yen shook his head with a chuckle. He looked at the statue in front of him. A long time ago, there was a man and a woman like this. The man was very handsome and the woman was very beautiful. When they walked together, it was like they were destined to be together. In the end, when everyone realized what was going on, they had already become a couple that everyone envied. However, the beautiful woman only found out later that the handsome man beside her was actually a vampire, a noble vampire from the warlord domain. The beautiful woman did not question the handsome man's love for her because of this. Under the handsome man's apologetic explanation, she still accepted him as usual. Unfortunately, the good times didn't last. The warlord domain was a battlefield. The ruler of the warlord domain, the first true ancestor, the forgotten warlord, had yet to establish his empire of the night. In order to defeat all the enemies and establish his own empire of the night, the first true ancestor, the forgotten warlord, began to gather his bloodkin subjects. He wanted to break the stalemate of the warlord domain and stabilize his position. As the first true ancestor, the noble bloodkin of the forgotten warlord, the handsome man accepted his king's summons and was about to participate in the war. The envied couple. Instead, they faced the tragic situation of separation. The beautiful woman once again accepted reality. When the handsome man was in pain, she gently understood him, mediated, and forgave him. She made a vow. She will always be here waiting for the return of her lover, and she will never leave. In the end, the handsome man left. He also made a vow to his lover that he would do his best to end the war as soon as possible. Go back to her side. Holding the longing for his lover and the urgency to end the war, the handsome man did his best to end the war as soon as possible. But in the end, the war lasted for 50 years. 50 years. To an ordinary human being, this is already more than half a lifetime. The handsome man regretted it very much. He regretted that he didn't turn his lover into his blood follower before he left so that she would have eternal life. Was his lover still alive? 50 years had passed. Was she still in love with him? Were they still waiting for his return? A handsome man doesn't know, but at least he still loves his lover. When the war ended, the handsome man returned to his lover's place. The scene that appeared in front of him became a scene that he would never forget. 50 years ago, the place where he lived with his lover was completely ruined and turned into an abandoned building. But, in this building with incomplete ceilings, his lover was still here. However, 50 years have passed. That beautiful lover of his back then is no longer there. She has become an old man who is lying on a broken bed and is about to die. That's not important. What's important is that the handsome man will never forget that when he stepped into this building and exposed himself to the dying old man, he saw clearly that the old man's wrinkled eyes lit up. Then, he smiled and closed his eyes. Once he closed his eyes, the dying old man's eyes never opened again. That weak smile of the dying old man also became an arrow that pierced through the handsome man's heart. Hugging the thin and weak body of his dead lover, the handsome man's tears dried up and he lost his heart. That day the sky began to rain heavily. Since then, every time the people living nearby passed by here, they would see a handsome young man hugging an old man's body and staying alone in the broken building. He didn't move, as if he had lost his vitality. He didn't eat or drink and just stayed there like that. Out of pity in their hearts, the people who lived nearby dug a well next to the handsome young man. Every day, they would come to the well to feed the handsome young man water. Over time, this became a local habit. Almost everyone who lived there would come here to feed the handsome young man water when they were free, maintaining this habit 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. Who knows how many years later, one day, when a person came here to feed the handsome young man water, he found the handsome young man was gone, and so was the old man in his arms. The only thing left behind was a well used to feed him water and a statue. Wu Yen let out a sigh of relief after he finished telling the story of the statue. He had unintentionally heard this story from some of his colleagues who were also attack magic officers. Even though he heard it once, Wu Yen couldn't help but feel melancholy after hearing it again. Wu Yen turned to look at Nagisa. He jumped in fright when he saw her. Her round eyes were filled with tears. Nagisa pouted as if she was being bullied. Wu Yen didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "What's wrong with you?" "Ugh." Nagisa sniffled and said with tears in her eyes, "I feel so pitiful, is that so?" Wu Yen chuckled when he heard Nagisa's words. "But did you know? From then on, anyone who had fed that handsome vampire noble with water, whether it was by themselves or the descendants of those who had fed him water, all received a perfect love and lived happily ever after." Nagisa froze. Looking at Nagisa's cute expression, Wu Yen pinched her nose. He held her hand and they walked to the statue and the well. Because of this story, there is a rumor here as well. He took out a wooden bowl from the well and filled it with water. He handed it to Nagisa. "As long as you bring your other half here and sprinkle this bowl of water on the statue, the couple will receive the blessings of the handsome young man and beautiful woman and will never be separated. Forever happy, forever happy." His gentle words reverberated in the silent space. Nagisa's teary eyes turned into a rose-red color. When paired with her big red eyes, she looked like the most beautiful color in the world. Wu Yen and Nagisa's hearts fluttered when they looked at each other. Wu Yan's words echoed in her ears. Nagisa no longer felt any sadness from the beautiful story. Instead, she was overwhelmed with joy. She couldn't react in time and stared blankly at the bowl of water in front of her. Wu Yen grinned as he said this in a serious and playful manner. "That's why you have to think this through. If you sprinkle this bowl of water with me, you can only be with me for the rest of your life, never to be separated again." As if awakened, she lifted her head and looked at Wu Yan's face. However, she quickly lowered her red face and fidgeted. After a long time, Nagisa gently reached out and grabbed the bowl. She also grabbed Wu Yan's hand, carrying the wooden bowl. The two gently sprinkled the water on the statue as if it was a treasure. For a moment the statue flashed with a wave of light, not sure if it was because of reflection or some other reason. Nagisa held the empty bowl tightly. She stared straight at Wu Yan's smiling face, her heart filled with happiness. Ding! Character, Dawn Nagisa, has fused with the user's body. Mental fusion. Existence meets the conditions to activate Yao Beast Mark. Yao Beast Mark activated. Character, Dawn Nagisa, transformed into a familiar. Chapter 1000. A brilliant aurora-like radiance enveloped the entire space, and also the boundless void. The brilliant light was constantly changing its shape and color. It was like an aurora, and also like a rainbow, in the air. Time seemed to have come to a complete standstill. Apart from the comfortable sound effect of the twisted aurora, there was nothing else moving in the space. It seemed that apart from light there was nothing else that could continue to exist in this place. Silence, solitude, emptiness, dullness. This was everything in this world. When Wu Yen opened his eyes, the scene that appeared in front of him startled him to the point that he frowned. This is... He reflexively looked at his own body, as if he wanted to confirm if they really exist or not. He searched through the hazy memories in his mind and his face was full of doubt. Why am I here? Furrowing his brows, Wu Yen tried his best to recall the memories that came back to him. He abruptly lifted his head. Right. Nagisa and I went to an exhibition room in the Cornerstone Gate. Wu Yen looked around. He remembered the last piece of the puzzle. But why am I here? Where is this? Before he appeared here, Wu Yen remembered the last thing he saw was Nagisa glowing coldly. The last thing he heard was a system notification, notifying him that the Yao mark was activated and Nagisa became his familiar. Logically speaking, Nagisa, who had become his familiar, should have returned to his body by now. How did he end up here in the blink of an eye? While he's puzzled, he also raised his guard. He's sure that this isn't a place that he's been to in his memory. This place is strange. It also seemed a little strange, as if it didn't really exist. Teacher! Nagisa's familiar voice sounded beside Wu Yen. Her cheerful tone didn't change, but the anxiety in her voice was clear. Nagisa! Nagisa's voice was heard. Wu Yen turned around and he saw Nagisa hugging his arm tightly. He calmed down when he saw her. Teacher! Nagisa tightened her grip on Wu Yan's arm. She inched closer to Wu Yen in fear. Where is this place? This is my world as well as thy world. At this moment, the space that had originally fallen into a state of time freeze. At the same time, a beautiful and clear voice rang out, as if it had regained its flow, a trace of life had appeared. No, it should be cold air. In the distorted space, a burst of white frost quickly swept over as the beautiful and clear voice reverberated. In an instant, the entire distorted space was covered in ice. Tiny ice crystals the size of flower petals mixed in with the white mist, mixing with the atmosphere. Sharp icicles began to protrude from the ground. They stood upright like thorns, as if they were preventing someone from approaching. Behind the icicles, in the white icy mist, there was a huge figure surrounded by white cold air. Slowly it emerged. Wings like a demon bird, lower limbs like a mermaid, the posture of a queen. It was a vassal beast. Wu Yen had only seen it twice, but he was extremely familiar with it. Enchantress of Ashnice! Wu Yen gasped. Nagisa stared at the Ice Queen with a strange look in her eyes. Her red eyes looked a bit dazed. Wu Yen didn't have time to observe Nagisa's performance because he saw. In the white mist there was a figure below the Enchantress of Ashnice, a figure about the same size as Nagisa. The owner of the figure had a head of long, pale blonde hair, but that long, straight blonde hair seemed to be able to change into other colors. In the blur, the long blonde hair seemed to be writhing like flames. Every time it writhed, there would be a flash of other colors. It was like a rainbow, and it was very eye-catching. Her eyes were dark blue, just like her hair. They also flashed with other kinds of luster, but unlike her rainbow-like light blonde hair, her eyes only flickered with flames. Her pair of ears were obviously elongated, just like an elf. Or perhaps it would be more appropriate to describe her as a fairy. She had a dreamlike and exquisite face. The young girl possessed a beauty that surpassed that of a human. It was a kind of extreme beauty that would cause people to subconsciously fear her. At this moment, a faint smile adorned her extremely beautiful face. It was a smile that matched her seductive appearance. It was a very innocent and arrogant smile. You! Wu Yen inhaled the frosty air, his expression chilling. Are you the body of consciousness that has been staying in Nagisa's body? Before he could finish his sentence, the scene that appeared in front of him made him flabbergasted. You! There was a prideful smile hanging on her beautiful face, but when Wu Yen said those words with a stern face and a tone that sounded like a reprimand, the girl's prideful smile crumbled and was replaced by a timid expression. It's like a high and mighty goddess suddenly fell into the mortal realm and turned into a timid little girl. The extreme difference in her behavior made the cold-faced Wu Yen a bit uncomfortable. Teacher! Nagisa angrily shouted at Wu Yen, don't scare her. Wu Yen looked at the angry Nagisa in shock. He wanted to say something, but Nagisa suddenly ran in front of the seductive girl and gently patted her back. Good girl, don't be scared, I don't mean any harm. Ah, you. The girl made a cute sound. She looked at Nagisa and then Wu Yen before speaking weakly. I forgive thee. Ha! Wu Yan's expression turned into one of amusement, the corner of his lips twitched. Why does it look like I'm the one bullying her? This thought flashed through his mind, but Wu Yen breathed a sigh of relief. At least, based on the girl's expression, she shouldn't be an enemy. Right? Wu Yen bitterly smiled and shook his head. He looked at Nagisa. Do you know her? Nagisa. Nagisa blinked her big eyes in surprise. No. No. Wu Yen felt his mind was in a mess. Then why do you seem so concerned about her? Do I? Nagisa tilted her head and frowned. I don't know either, but there's a voice in my head telling me that I should be concerned about her. A voice in your head. Wu Yen felt like he's getting more and more confused. He quickly gathered his thoughts and glanced at the timid girl. Is this all right? She appeared with a familiar just now. She should be a vampire. Aren't you afraid? Nagisa gasped when she heard Wu Yen. It's true. Nagisa, I don't think I'm afraid of her. Wu Yen frowned when he saw the genuine surprise on Nagisa's face. Why aren't you afraid of her? I don't know. Nagisa gave the same answer. She turned to look at the timid girl in her arms with a confused expression. But I feel like I've been with her for a long time. Wu Yen fell silent. Indeed, from a certain point of view, the girl has been with Nagisa for a long time. After all, the girl has always been in Nagisa's body with that familiar. Wu Yen rubbed his forehead and glanced at the girl. Perhaps sensing Wu Yan's gaze, the girl shrunk back timidly. Don't look at me like that. Sorry. Wu Yen smiled bitterly. He recalled the girl who used Nagisa's body to confront him and even kissed him to acknowledge his existence. Wu Yen couldn't associate her with this little princess who only knew how to act cute. Wu Yen tried his best to lighten his tone as he asked. Then, tell me first, what's your name? The girl snuck a peek at Wu Yen before mustering up her courage. Aguirola.